I think for me and for many of my generation, the coming of the third programme changed our lives. It certainly changed mine. I was 15 in 1946, terribly precocious, very bent on going into the theatre and opera, obsessed by the drama, obsessed by music, hoping to go to university. And suddenly there was all this stuff flooding out every night, which was challenging and surprising. I heard loads of plays that I'd never seen, certainly lots of Elizabethan plays, I remember, Webster, Tourneur, Ford, Beaumont and Fletcher. But most of all, I remember the first drama of the third programme, first one of all, which was Man and Superman in full, with Sebastian Shaw, who later, in his maturity and old age, became an old friend and a staunch member of the Royal Shakespeare Company, Esme Percy, who was very, very close to Shaw, who I also later worked with several times and quizzed about Shaw, and Griselda Harvey, who was a kind of golden voice, all-purpose BBC repertory actress, but who had astonishing wit. Anyway, the whole play was there, stretched out through the whole evening, and I couldn't believe my eyes or my luck. But Man and Superman remains a golden memory. Well, see, this is before television, and one used to concentrate on the radio. I mean, radio is still an extraordinarily popular and potent medium, but it's now the thing that goes on while we're doing other things. I mean, all the stage designers I know live in a wash of Radio 4 while they design their sets. I personally find that terribly difficult. I mean, I cannot listen to music and do something else. I cannot have music as background. Music is too involving for me. But I remember listening to the whole play and really following it. I think radio drama is a great freer of the imagination. A radio production doesn't have to be as good as a stage production, because you can imagine the physical and visual dimension to your heart's content. I remember the broadcast being more potent. I've had a sort of love-hate relationship with Shaw all my life. I've never done a Shaw play in the theatre. I've put him on as an impresario, as a manager, but I've never actually directed him. Some days I feel that Shaw's characters don't do what they want to do, but what he wants them to do. Some days I feel he manipulates drama for soapbox purposes. I mean, he is the great soapbox writer, he's a great rhetorician, and he's a marvellous speaker, he's a marvellous polemicist, he's marvellous at rhetoric. But nonetheless, only his greatest plays, it seems to me, have enough humanity in them to excuse their absolute intellectual brilliance. And I would put Man and Superman high on the list. I mean, Man and Superman, Major Barbara, Heartbreak House, I think are three masterpieces, and some of the early ones, Widowers' Houses, I love very much. I've approached Man and Superman more than once, and then thought, well, it's impossible to do in the modern theatre, because it doesn't make any sense without the famous third act, the Don Juan in Hell episode, which makes it a play of gargantuan proportions, I mean, nearly Wagnerian, over 4 hours. Without that, I think it's a rather lightweight domestic comedy. With the whole thing, you can, however, though, get right into the heart of Shaw's philosophy and what Shaw was driving on about. So, when the Radio 3 asked me if I would like to do a commemorative production, I, for nostalgic reasons, said yes, primarily, I think. Nostalgic because I remember the first production, and because I believe passionately in what the third programme stood for. Less, I'm bound to say, in what Radio 3 stands for, because I think the perpetual excusing itself and telling the audience not to be frightened of its standards or at the height of its brow is a sign of current times and pretty worrying. In fact, the first request I had over Man and Superman was that if I wanted to do it, when could they have my cuts? And I said, cuts? You didn't cut it in 1946? And they said, oh no, I'm sure we didn't, but you know, I mean, times change and we've got to think of our audience. To which I replied, you don't have to think of your audience, you have to think of what you're doing. And what you're doing is Man and Superman. And if Shaw was here, he would go raving mad if you cut it. So if you want to cut it, get somebody else to do it. So they said they'd have a meeting, and they had a meeting, and they decided to make it an event, another buzzword of current times. And as it's an event, it can be full length. And I look forward to a day when a play like this doesn't have to be called an event, it's just called a play again. What gave me the most pleasure in directing it is the sheer energy and grace of Shaw's writing. As a director, he was, I think, slightly contemptuous of actors. I mean, he believed that if an actor had enough breath and a good enough voice and enough aptitude, providing he spoke his sentences right through to the end, to the full stop, and didn't dally on the way, they would fall naturally into place. His rhetoric, his writing, would automatically make the actor accent the right word, and it would speed along. And damn me, it does. I mean, in that sense, it's a bit like directing Shakespeare. If you observe the form and the punctuation and breathe in the right place, you find out what he meant. And that's great fun. It's also wonderfully witty, if you just let it go fleetly, if you let it trip along. It's eminently suited for radio, because it's words, words, words. I mean, the last lines of the play is... go on talking. Talking, they say, talking. And the hero, John Tanner, who's a kind of self-portrait of Shaw himself, talks and talks and talks and talks, and will talk himself into or out of any situation. Talk is his weapon.
Ralph Fiennes, Juliet Stevenson, Judi Dench and John Wood in Peter Hall's production of Man and Superman by Bernard Shaw. On a spring day in 1903, Roebuck Ramsden is in his study opening the morning's letters. The study, handsomely and solidly furnished, proclaims the man of means. Not a speck of dust is visible. Even the top of Roebuck's head is polished. Sitting at his writing table, he has on his right the windows giving on Portland Place. A parlour-maid enters with a visitor's card. Roebuck takes it and nods, pleased.
Show him in.
Mr. Robinson.
Well, Octavius, it's the common lot. We must all face it some day. Sit down.
Yes, we must face it, Mr. Ramsden. But I owed him a great deal. He did everything for me that my father could have done if he had lived.
He had no son of his own, you see.
But he had daughters, and yet he was as good to my sister as to me. And his death was so sudden. I always intended to thank him, to let him know that I had not taken all his care of me as a matter of course, as any boy takes his father's care. But I waited for an opportunity. Now he's dead, dropped without a moment's warning. You will never know what I felt.
How do we know that, Octavius? He may know, we cannot tell. Now, come, don't grieve. That's right. Now, let me tell you something to console you. The last time I saw him, it was in this very room. He said to me, "Tavy is a generous lad and the soul of honour, and when I see how little consideration other men get from their sons, I realise how much better than a son he's been to me." There. Now, doesn't that do you good?
Mr. Ramsden, he used to say to me that he had met only one man in the world who was the soul of honour, and that was Roebuck Ramsden.
Oh, that was his partiality. We were very old friends, you know. But there was something else he used to say about you. I wonder whether I ought to tell you or not.
You know best.
It was something about his daughter.
About Anne? Oh, do tell me that, Mr. Ramsden.
Well, he said he was glad, after all, you were not his son, because he thought that someday Annie and you... Oh, well, perhaps I shouldn't have told you. But he was in earnest.
Oh, if only I thought I had a chance. You know, Mr. Ramsden, I don't care about money or about what people call position, and I can't bring myself to take an interest in the business of struggling for them. Well, Anne has a most exquisite nature, but she is so accustomed to be in the thick of that sort of thing that she thinks a man's character incomplete if he is not ambitious. She knows that if she married me, she would have to reason herself out of being ashamed of me for not being a big success of some kind.
Oh, nonsense, my boy, nonsense. You're too modest. What does she know about the real value of men at her age? Besides, She's a wonderfully dutiful girl. Her father's wish would be sacred to her. Do you know that since she grew up to years of discretion, I don't believe she has ever once given her own wish as a reason for doing anything or not doing it. It's always, father wishes me to, or mother wouldn't like it. It's really almost a fault in her. Now, I have often told her she must learn to think for herself.
I couldn't ask her to marry me because her father wished it, Mr. Ramsden.
Oh, well, perhaps not. No, of course not. I see that. No, you certainly couldn't. But when you win her on your own merits, it'll be a great happiness to her to fulfil her father's desire as well as her own, eh? Come, you'll ask her, won't you?
At all events, I promise you I shall never ask anyone else.
Oh, you shan't need to. She'll accept you, my boy. Although you have one great drawback.
What drawback is that, Mr. Ramsden? I should rather say which of my many drawbacks.
I'll tell you, Octavius. I have in my hand a copy of the most infamous, the most scandalous, the most mischievous, and the most blackguardly book that ever escaped burning at the hands of the common hangman. I've not read it. I wouldn't soil my mind with such filth. But I have read what the papers say of it. The title's quite enough for me. The Revolutionist's Handbook and Pocket Companion by John Tanner, M.I.R.C., member of the idle rich class.
But Jack...
For goodness sake, don't call him Jack under my roof. Now, Octavius, I know that my dead friend was right when he said that you were a generous lad. I know this man was your schoolfellow and that you felt bound to stand by him because there was a boyish friendship between you. But I ask you to consider the altered circumstances. You were treated as a son in my friend's house. You lived there, and your friends could not be turned from the door. This man Tanner was in and out there on your account almost all of his childhood. He addresses Annie by her Christian name as freely as you do. Well, while her father was alive, that was her father's business, not mine. This man Tanner was only a boy to him. His opinions were something to be laughed at, like a man's hat on a child's head. But now Tanner is a grown man and Annie a grown woman. And her father is gone. We don't as yet know the exact terms of his will, but he often talked it over with me. I have no more doubts than I have that you're sitting there, that the will appoints me Annie's trustee and guardian. Now, I tell you, once for all, I cannot and won't have Annie placed in such a position that she must, out of regard for you, suffer the intimacy of this fellow Tanner. It's not fair, it's not right, it's not kind. What are you going to do about it?
But Anne herself has told Jack that whatever his opinions are, he will always be welcome because he knew her dear father.
That girl's mad about her duty to her parents. Excuse me, Octavius, but there are limits to social toleration. You know that I am not a bigoted or prejudiced man. You know that I am plain Roebuck Ramsden, when other men who have done less have got handles to their names. Because I have stood for equality and liberty of conscience while they were truckling to the church and to the aristocracy. Whitefield and I lost chance after chance through our advanced opinions. But I draw the line at anarchism and free love and that sort of thing. If I am to be Annie's guardian, she will have to learn that she has a duty to me. I won't have it. I will not have it. She must forbid John Tanner the house, and so must you.
But...
Shh. Well?
Mr. Tanner wishes to see you, sir.
Mr. Tanner?
Jack.
How dare Mr. Tanner call on me? Say I cannot see him.
I am sorry you are turning my friend from your door like that.
He's not at the door, sir. He's upstairs in the drawing room with Miss Ramsden. He came with Mrs. Whitefield and Miss Anne and Miss Robinson, sir.
That's very like Jack, Mr. Ramsden. You must see him, even if it's only to turn him out.
Go upstairs and ask Mr. Tanner to be good enough to step down here. I must say, of all the confounded pieces of impertinence. Well, if these are anarchists' manners, I hope you like them. And Annie with him. Annie, oh.
Yes, that's what surprises me. He's so desperately afraid of Anne. There must be something the matter.
Ramsden, do you know what this is?
No, sir.
It is a copy of Whitefield's will. Anne got it this morning.
When you say Anne, you mean, I presume, Miss Whitefield?
I mean our Anne, your Anne, Tavy's Anne, and now, heaven help me, my Anne.
What do you mean?
Mean? Do you know who is appointed Anne's guardian by this will?
I believe I am.
You. You and I, man. I. Both of us.
You? Impossible.
It's only too hideously true. Ramsden, get me out of it somehow. You don't know Anne as well as I do. She'll commit every crime a respectable woman can, and she'll justify every one of them by saying that it was the wish of her guardians. She'll put everything on us, and we shall have no more control over her than a couple of mice over a cat.
Jack, I wish you wouldn't talk like that about Anne.
This chap's in love with her, that's another complication. Well, she'll either jilt him and say I didn't approve of him, or marry him and say you ordered her to. I tell you, this is the most staggering blow that has ever fallen on a man of my age and temperament.
Let me see that will, sir. I cannot believe that my old friend Whitefield would have shown such a want of confidence in me as to associate me with a man...
It's all my own doing. That's the horrible irony of it. He told me one day that you were to be Anne's guardian, and like a fool I began arguing with him about the folly of leaving a young woman under the control of an old man with obsolete ideas.
My ideas? Obsolete?
Totally. I had just finished an essay called Down with Government by the Grey-Haired, and I was full of arguments and illustrations. I said the proper thing was to combine the experience of an old hand with the vitality of a young one. Hang me if he didn't take me at my word and alter his will. It's dated only a fortnight after that conversation, appointing me as joint guardian with you.
I shall refuse to act.
What's the good of that? I've been refusing all the way from Richmond. But Anne keeps on saying that of course she's only an orphan, and that she can't expect the people who were glad to come to the house in her father's time to trouble much about her now. That's the latest game. An orphan. It's like hearing an ironclad talk about being at the mercy of the wind and waves.
That's not fair, Jack. She is an orphan, and you ought to stand by her.
Stand by her? What danger is she in? She has the law on her side, she has popular sentiment on her side, she has plenty of money and no conscience. All she wants with me is to load up all her moral responsibilities on me and do as she likes at the expense of my character. I can't control her, and she can compromise me as much as she likes. I might as well be her husband.
Well, you can refuse to accept the guardianship. I certainly refuse to hold it jointly with you.
Yes, and what will she say to that? What does she say to it? Just that her father's wishes are sacred to her, and that she shall always look up to me as her guardian whether I care to face the responsibility or not. Refuse? You might as well refuse to accept the embraces of a boa constrictor when once it gets round your neck.
This sort of talk is not kind to me, Jack.
If he wanted a young guardian, why didn't he appoint Tavy?
Oh, why indeed?
I will tell you. He sounded me about it. But I refused to trust because I loved her. I had no right to let myself be forced on her as a guardian by her father. He spoke to her about it, and she said I was right. You know I love her, Mr. Ramsden, and Jack knows it too. If Jack loved a woman, I would not compare her to a boa constrictor in his presence, however much I might dislike her.
I do not believe that Whitefield was in his right senses when he made that will. You have admitted that he made it under your influence.
You ought to be pretty well obliged to me for my influence. He leaves you 2,500 for your trouble. He leaves Tavy a dowry for his sister and 5,000 for himself.
Oh, I can't take it. It was too good to us.
You won't get it, my boy, if Ramsden upsets the will.
Ah, I see. You have got me in a cleft stick.
He leaves me nothing but the charge of Anne's morals on the ground that I have already more money than is good for me. That shows he had his wits about him, doesn't it?
Well, I admit that.
Mr. Ramsden, I think you're prejudiced against Jack. He is a man of honour and incapable of abusing...
Don't, Tavy. You'll make me ill. I am not a man of honour. I am a man struck down by a dead hand. Tavy, you must marry her after all and take her off my hands. And I had my heart set on saving you from her.
Oh, Jack, you talk of saving me from my highest happiness.
Yes, a lifetime of happiness. If it were only the first half hour's happiness, Tavy, I would buy it for you with my last penny. But a lifetime of happiness. No man alive could bear it. It would be hell on earth.
Stuff, sir! Talk sense, or else go and waste someone else's time. I have something better to do than to listen to your fooleries.
You hear him, Tavy? Not an idea in his head later than 1860. We can't leave Anne with no other guardian to turn to.
I am proud of your contempt for my character and opinion, sir. Your own are set forth in that book, I believe.
What? You've got my book? What do you think of it?
Do you suppose I would read such a book, sir?
Then why did you buy it?
I did not buy it, sir. It has been sent to me by some foolish lady who seems to admire your views. I was about to dispose of it when Octavius interrupted me. I shall do so now, with your permission.
You have no more manners than I have myself. However, that saves ceremony between us. What do you intend to do about this will?
May I make a suggestion?
Certainly, Octavius.
Aren't we forgetting that Anne herself may have some wishes in this matter?
I quite intend that Annie's wishes shall be consulted in every reasonable way. But she's only a woman, and a young and inexperienced woman at that.
Ramsden, I begin to pity you.
I don't want to know how you feel towards me, Mr. Tanner.
Anne will do just exactly what she likes, and what's more, she'll force us to advise her to do it, and she'll put the blame on us if it turns out badly. So, as Tavy's longing to see her...
I am not, Jack.
You lie, Tavy, you are. So let's have her down from the drawing room and ask her what she intends us to do. Off with you, Tavy, and fetch her. And don't be long, for the strained relations between myself and Ramsden will make the interval rather painful.
Never mind him, Mr. Ramsden. He's not serious.
Mr. Tanner, you are the most impudent person I have ever met.
I know it, Ramsden. Yet even I cannot wholly conquer shame. We live in an atmosphere of shame. We are ashamed of everything that is real about us. Ashamed of ourselves, of our relatives, of our incomes, of our accents, of our opinions, of our experience, just as we are ashamed of our naked skins. Good Lord, my dear Ramsden, we are ashamed to walk, ashamed to ride in an omnibus, ashamed to hire a hansom instead of keeping a carriage, ashamed of keeping one horse instead of two, and a groom gardener instead of a coachman and footman. The more things a man is ashamed of, the more respectable he is. Why, you're ashamed to buy my book, ashamed to read it. The only thing you're not ashamed of is to judge me for it without having read it. And even that only means that you're ashamed to have heterodox opinions. Look at the effect I produced because my fairy godmother withheld from me this gift of shame. I have every possible virtue that a man can have, except...
I'm glad you think so well of yourself.
All you mean by that is that you think I ought to be ashamed of talking about my virtues. You don't mean that I haven't got them. You know perfectly well that I am as sober and honest a citizen as yourself, as truthful personally, and much more truthful politically and morally.
I deny that. I will not allow you or any man to treat me as if I were a mere member of the British public. I detest its prejudices. I scorn its narrowness. I demand the right to think for myself. You pose as an advanced man. Well, let me tell you that I was an advanced man before you were born.
I knew it was a long time ago.
I am as advanced as ever I was. I defy you to prove that I have ever hauled down the flag. I am more advanced than ever I was. I grow more advanced every day.
More advanced in years, Polonius.
Polonius? So you are Hamlet, I suppose.
No, I am only the most impudent person you've ever met. That's your notion of a thoroughly bad character. When you want to give me a piece of your mind, you ask yourself, as a just and upright man, what is the worst you can fairly say of me? Thief, liar, forger, adulterer, perjurer, glutton, drunkard? Not one of these names fit me. You have to fall back on my deficiency in shame. Well, admit it. I even congratulate myself, for if I were ashamed of my real self, I should cut as stupid a figure as any of the rest of you. Cultivate a little impudence, Ramsden, and you will become quite a remarkable man.
You
have no desire for that sort of notoriety. Bless you, I knew that answer would come, as well as I know that a box of matches will come out of an automatic machine when I put a penny in the slot. You would be ashamed to say anything else.
Ah, Mrs. Whitefield. Anne. I'm sorry, Annie, to force business on you at a sad time like the present, but your poor dear father's will has raised a very serious question. You have read it, I believe?
Yes.
I must say I'm surprised to find Mr. Tanner named as joint guardian and trustee with myself of you and Rhoda. I don't know that I can consent to act under such conditions. Mr. Tanner has, I understand, some objection also, but I do not profess to understand its nature. He will no doubt speak for himself. But we are agreed that we can decide nothing until we know your views. I'm afraid I shall have to ask you to choose between my sole guardianship and that of Mr. Tanner, for I fear it is impossible for us to undertake a joint arrangement.
Mamma would...
Now, Anne, I do beg you not to put it on me. I have no opinion on the subject, and if I had, it would probably not be attended to. I'm quite content with whatever you three think best.
Mamma knows that she is not strong enough to bear the whole responsibility for me and Rhoda without some help and advice. Rhoda must have a guardian, and though I am older, I do not think any young, unmarried woman should be left quite to her own guidance. I hope you agree with me, Granny?
Granny? Do you intend to call your guardians Granny?
Oh, don't be foolish, Jack. Mr. Ramsden has always been Grandpapa Roebuck to me. I am Granny's Annie, and he is Annie's Granny. I christened him so when I first learned to speak.
I hope you are satisfied, Mr. Tanner. Go on, Annie. I quite agree with you.
Well, if I am to have a guardian, can I set aside anybody whom my dear father appointed for me?
You approve of your father's choice, then?
It is not for me to approve or disapprove. I accept it. My father loved me and knew best what was good for me.
Of course. I understand your feeling, Annie. It's what I would have expected of you. And it does you credit. But it does not settle the question so completely as you think. Let me put a case to you. Suppose you were to discover that I had been guilty of some disgraceful action, that I was not the man your poor dear father took me for. Would you still consider it right I should be Rhoda's guardian?
I can't imagine you doing anything disgraceful, Granny.
You haven't done anything of the sort, have you?
No, sir.
Well, then why suppose it?
You see, Granny, Mamma would not like me to suppose it.
You are both so full of natural and affectionate feeling in these family matters that it's very hard to put the situation fairly before you.
Besides, my friend, you're not putting the situation fairly before them.
Put it yourself, then.
I will. Anne, Ramsden thinks I am not fit to be your guardian, and I quite agree with him. He considers that if your father had read my book, he wouldn't have appointed me. That book is the disgraceful action he has been talking about. He thinks it's your duty, for Rhoda's sake, to ask him to act alone and to make me withdraw. Say the word, and I will.
But I haven't read your book, Jack.
Here. Then read it at once and decide.
If I am to be your guardian, I positively forbid you to read that book, Annie.
Of course not, if you don't wish it.
If one guardian is to forbid you to read the other guardian's book, how are we to settle it? Suppose I order you to read it. What about your duty to me?
I'm sure you would never purposely force me into a painful dilemma, Jack.
Yes, Annie, this is all very well and, as I said, quite natural and becoming, but you must make a choice, one way or another. We are as much in a dilemma as you.
I feel that I am too young, too inexperienced to decide. My father's wishes are sacred to me.
If you two men won't carry them out, I must say it's rather hard that you should put the responsibility on Anne. It seems to me that people are always putting things on other people in this world.
I'm sorry you take it in that way.
Do you refuse to accept me as your ward, Granny?
No, I never said that. I greatly object to act with Mr. Tanner, that's all.
Why, what's the matter with poor Jack?
My views are too advanced for him.
They are not. I deny it.
Of course not. What nonsense. Nobody is more advanced than Granny. I'm sure it is Jack himself who's made all the difficulty. Come, Jack, be kind to me in my sorrow. You don't refuse to accept me as your ward, do you?
No, I let myself in for it, so I suppose I must face it.
Then we're all agreed, and my dear father's will is to be carried out. Oh, you don't know what a joy that is to me and to my mother. And I shall have my dear Granny to help and advise me. And Jack the giant killer. And Jack's inseparable friend, Rikki-Tikki-Tavi.
Now that you are Anne's guardian, Mr. Ramsden, I wish you would speak to her about a habit of giving people nicknames. They can't be expected to like it.
How can you say such a thing, Mamma? Oh, I wonder, can you be right? Have I been inconsiderate? Do you, Octavius, want to be treated like a grown-up man? Must I call you Mr. Robinson in future?
Oh, please call me Rikki-Tikki-Tavi. Mr. Robinson would hurt me cruelly.
Oh. You know, I'm beginning to think that Granny is rather a piece of impertinence, but I never dreamt of its hurting you.
My dear Annie, nonsense. I insist on Granny. I won't answer to any other name than Annie's Granny.
You all spoil me, except Jack.
I think you ought to call me Mr. Tanner.
No, you don't, Jack. That's like the things you say on purpose to shock people. Those who know you pay no attention to them. But if you like, I'll call you after your famous ancestor, Don Juan.
Don Juan?
Oh, is there any harm in it? I didn't know. Then I certainly won't call you that. Well, may I call you Jack until I can think of something else?
Oh, for heaven's sake, don't try to invent anything worse. I capitulate. I consent to Jack. I embrace Jack. Here endeth my first and last attempt to assert my authority.
You see, Mamma, they all really like to have pet names.
Well, I think you might at least drop them until we're out of mourning.
Oh, how could you remind me, Mother? Oh.
Of course. My fault, as usual.
Ramsden were beaten, smashed, non-entitized, like her mother.
Stuff, sir.
Tavy, do you want to count for something in the world?
I want to count for something as a poet. I want to write a great play.
With Anne as the heroine?
Yes, I confess it.
Take care, Tavy. The play with Anne as the heroine is all right, but if you're not very careful, by heaven, she'll marry you.
No such luck, Jack.
Why, man, your head is in the lioness's mouth. You are half swallowed already. In 3 bites. Bite 1, Ricky. Bite 2, Ticky. Bite 3, Tavy. And down you go.
She is the same to everybody, Jack. You know her ways.
Yes, she breaks everybody's back with the stroke of her paw. But the question is, which one of us will she eat? My own opinion is that she means to eat you.
It's horrible to talk like that about her when she's upstairs crying for her father, but I do so want her to eat me that I can bear your brutalities because they give me hope.
Tavy, that's the devilish side of a woman's fascination. She makes you will your own destruction.
But it's not destruction, it's fulfilment.
Yes, of her purpose, and that purpose is neither her happiness nor yours, but nature's. Vitality in a woman is a blind fury of creation. She sacrifices herself to it. Do you think she will hesitate to sacrifice you?
Why, it is just because she is self-sacrificing that she will not sacrifice those she loves.
That is the profoundest of mistakes, Tavy. It is the self-sacrificing women that sacrifice others most recklessly. Because they are unselfish, they are kind in little things. Because they have a purpose which is not their own purpose, but that of the whole universe, a man is nothing to them but an instrument of that purpose.
Don't be ungenerous, Jack. They take the tenderest care of us.
Yes, as a soldier takes care of his rifle or a musician of his violin. But do they allow us any purpose or freedom of our own? Will they lend us to one another? Can the strongest man escape from them when once he is appropriated? They tremble when we are in danger, and weep when we die. But the tears are not for us, but for a father wasted, a son's breeding thrown away. They accuse us of treating them as a mere means to our pleasure. But how can so feeble and transient a folly as a man's selfish pleasure enslave a woman, as the whole purpose of nature embodied in a woman can enslave a man?
What matter if the slavery makes us happy?
No matter at all if you have no purpose of your own and are, like most men, a mere breadwinner. But you, Tavy, are an artist. That is, you have a purpose as absorbing and as unscrupulous as a woman's purpose.
Not unscrupulous.
Quite unscrupulous. The true artist will let his wife starve, his children go barefoot, his mother drudge for his living at 70, sooner than work at anything but his art. To women he is half vivisector, half vampire. He gets into intimate relations with them to study them, to strip the mask of convention from them, to surprise their inmost secrets, knowing that they have the power to rouse his deepest creative energies, to rescue him from his cold reason, to make him see visions and dream dreams, to inspire him, as he calls it. He persuades women that they may do this for their own purpose, whilst he really means them to do it for his. He steals the mother's milk and blackens it to make printer's ink to scoff at her and glorify ideal women with. He pretends to spare her the pangs of childbearing, so that he may have for himself the tenderness and fostering that belong of right to her children. Since marriage began, the great artist has been known as a bad husband. But he is worse. He is a child robber, a bloodsucker, a hypocrite, and a cheat. Perish the race, and wither 1,000 women, if only the sacrifice of them enable him to act Hamlet better, to paint a finer picture, to write a deeper poem, a greater play, a profounder philosophy. For mark you, Tavy, the artist's work is to show us ourselves as we really are. Our minds are nothing but this knowledge of ourselves, and he who adds a jot to such knowledge creates a new mind as surely as any woman creates new men. In the rage of that creation, he is as ruthless as the woman, as dangerous to her as she to him, and as horribly fascinating. Of all human struggles, there is none so treacherous and remorseless as the struggle between the artist-man and the mother-woman. Which shall use up the other? That is the issue between them. And it is all the deadlier because in your romanticist cant they love one another.
Even if it were so, and I don't admit it for a moment, it is out of the deadliest struggles that we get the noblest characters.
Remember that the next time you meet a grizzly bear or a Bengal tiger, Tavy.
I mean where there is love, Jack.
Oh, the tiger will love you. There is no love sincerer than the love of food. I think Anne loves you that way. She patted your cheek as if you were a nicely underdone chop.
You know, Jack, I should have run away from you if I did not make it a fixed rule not to mind anything you say. You come out with perfectly revolting things sometimes.
I hardly expected to find you still here, Mr. Tanner.
Am I in the way? Good morning, fellow guardian. Anne?
Oh, stop, Jack. Granny, he must know sooner or later.
Octavius, I have a very serious piece of news for you. It is of the most private and delicate nature, of the most painful nature, too, I am sorry to say. Do you wish Mr. Tanner to be present while I explain?
I have no secrets from Jack.
Well, before you decide that finally, let me say that the news concerns your sister, and that it is terrible news.
Violet? What's happened? Is she dead?
I'm not sure that it is not even worse than that.
But is she badly hurt? Has there been an accident?
Oh, no, nothing of that sort.
Anne, will you have the common humanity to tell us what the matter is?
I can't. Violet has done something dreadful. We shall have to get her away somewhere.
Is that what you meant, Mr. Ramsden?
Yes. I'm afraid there is no doubt that Violet did not really go to Eastbourne 3 weeks ago when we thought she was with the Parry Whitefields. And she called on a strange doctor yesterday with a wedding ring on her finger. Mrs. Parry Whitefield met her there by chance. And so the whole thing came out.
Who is the scoundrel?
She won't tell us.
What a frightful thing.
Dreadful. Appalling. Worse than death, as Ramsden says. What would you not give, Tavy, to turn it into a railway accident with all her bones broken, or something equally respectable and deserving of sympathy?
Oh, don't be brutal, Jack.
Brutal? Good heavens, man, what are you crying for? Here is a woman we all supposed to be making bad watercolour sketches, practising Grieg and Brahms, gadding about to concerts and parties, wasting her life and her money. We suddenly learn that she has turned from these sillinesses to the fulfilment of her highest purpose and greatest function, to increase, multiply, and replenish the earth. And instead of admiring her courage and rejoicing in her instinct, instead of crowning the completed womanhood and raising the triumphal strain of "Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given," here you are, you who have been as merry as grigs in your mourning for the dead, all pulling long faces and looking as ashamed and disgraced as if the girl had committed the vilest of crimes.
I will not have these abominations uttered in my house.
Look here, if you insult me again, I'll take you at your word and leave your house. Anne, where is Violet now?
Why? Are you going to her?
Of course I'm going to her. She wants help. She wants money. She wants respect and congratulation. She wants every chance for her child. She does not seem likely to get it from you. She shall from me. Where is she?
Don't be so headstrong, Jack. She's upstairs.
What? Under Ramsden's sacred roof? Go and do your miserable duty, Ramsden. Hunt her out into the street, cleanse your threshold from her contamination, vindicate the purity of your English home. I'll go for a cab.
Oh, Granny, you mustn't do that.
I'll take her away, Mr. Ramsden. She has no right to come to your house.
But I am only too anxious to help her. How dare you, sir, impute such monstrous intentions to me? I protest against it. I am ready to put down my last penny to save her from being driven to run to you for protection.
It's all right, then. He's not going to act up to his principles. It's agreed that we all stand by Violet.
But who is the man? He can make reparation by marrying her, and he shall. Or he shall answer for it to me.
He shall, Octavius. There, you speak like a man.
Then you don't think him a scoundrel after all?
Not a scoundrel. He's a heartless scoundrel.
A damned scoundrel. Oh, I beg your pardon, Annie, but I can say no less.
So we are to marry your sister to a damned scoundrel by way of reforming her character. On my soul, I think you're all mad.
Don't be absurd, Jack. Of course, you're quite right, Tavy, but we don't know who he is. Violet won't tell us.
What on earth does it matter who he is? He's done his part, and Violet must do the rest.
Stuff! Lunacy! There is a rascal in our midst, a libertine, a villain, worse than a murderer, and we are not to learn who he is. In our ignorance, we are to shake him by the hand, to introduce him to our homes, to trust our daughters with him, to...
There, Granny, don't talk so loud. It's most shocking, we must all admit that. But if Violet won't tell us, what can we do? Nothing. Simply nothing.
Well, I'm not so sure of that. If any man has paid Violet any special attention, we can easily find that out. And if there is any man of notoriously loose principles among us... Yes, sir, I repeat, if there is any man of notoriously loose principles among us...
Or any man notoriously lacking in self-control...
Do you suggest that I am capable of such an act?
My dear Ramsden, this is an act of which every man is capable. That is what comes of getting at cross purposes with nature. The suspicion you have just flung at me clings to us all. It's the sort of mud that sticks to the judge's ermine or the cardinal's robe as fast as to the rags of the tramp. Oh, come, Tavy, don't look so bewildered. It might have been me. It might have been Ramsden, just as it might have been anybody. If it had, what could we do but lie and protest, as Ramsden is going to protest? I! Guilt itself could not stammer more confusedly. And yet you know perfectly well he's innocent, Tavy.
Oh, I am glad you admit that, sir. I admit myself that there is an element of truth in what you say, grossly as you may distort it to gratify your malicious humour. I hope, Octavius, no suspicion of me is possible in your mind.
You? No, not for a moment.
I think he suspects me just a little.
Jack, you couldn't, you wouldn't.
Why not?
Why not?
Oh, well, I'll tell you why not. First, you would feel bound to quarrel with me. Second, Violet doesn't like me. Third, if I had the honour of being the father of Violet's child, I should boast of it instead of denying it. So be easy. Our friendship is not in danger.
I should have put away the suspicion with horror if only you would think and feel naturally about it. I beg your pardon.
My pardon? Nonsense. And now let's sit down and have a family council. Violet is going to do the state a service. Consequently, she must be packed abroad like a criminal until it's over. What's happening upstairs?
Violet is in the housekeeper's room. By herself, of course.
Why not in the drawing room?
Don't be absurd, Jack. Miss Ramsden is in the drawing room with my mother, considering what to do.
Oh, the housekeeper's room is the penitentiary, I suppose, and the prisoner is waiting to be brought before her judges, the old cats.
Oh, Jack! You are at present a guest beneath the roof of one of the old cats, sir. My sister is mistress of this house.
She would put me in the housekeeper's room, too, if she dared, Ramsden. However, I withdraw. Cats would have more sense. Anne, as your guardian, I order you to go to Violet at once and be particularly kind to her.
I've seen her, Jack, and I'm sorry to say I'm afraid she's going to be rather obstinate about going abroad. I think Tavy ought to speak to her about it.
How can I speak to her about such a thing?
Now, don't break down, Ricky. Try to bear it, for all our sakes.
Life is not all plays and poems, Octavius. Come, face it like a man.
Poor dear brother, poor dear friends of the family, poor dear Tabbies and Grimalkins, poor dear everybody except the woman who's going to risk her life to create another life. Tavy, don't you be a selfish ass. Away with you and talk to Violet and bring her down here if she cares to come. Tell her we'll stand by her.
No, sir.
Oh, we understand. It's against your conscience, but still you'll do it.
I assure you all on my word, I never meant to be selfish. It's so hard to know what to do when one wishes earnestly to do right.
My dear Tavy, your pious English habit of regarding the world as a moral gymnasium built expressly to strengthen your character in occasionally leads you to think about your own confounded principles when you should be thinking about other people's necessities. The need of the present hour is a happy mother and a healthy baby. Bend your energies on that, and you will see your way clearly enough.
I'm going.
And morality, sir? What is to become of that?
Meaning a weeping Magdalene and an innocent child branded with her shame. Not in our circle, thank you. Morality can go to its father, the devil.
I thought so, sir. Morality sent to the devil to please our libertines, male and female. Oh, that is to be the future of England, is it?
Oh, England will survive your disapproval. Meanwhile, I understand that you agree with me as to the practical course we are to take.
Not in your spirit, sir. Not for your reasons.
You can explain that if anybody calls you to account, here or hereafter.
Granny, hadn't you better go up to the drawing room and tell them what we intend to do?
I hardly like to leave you alone with this gentleman. Will you not come with me?
Oh, Miss Ramsden would not like to speak about it before me, Granny. I ought not to be present.
You're right. I should have thought of that. You're a good gal, Annie.
Jack, are you glad that you're my guardian? You don't mind being made responsible for me, I hope?
The latest addition to your collection of scapegoats, eh?
Oh, that stupid old joke of yours about me. Do please drop it. Why do you say things that you know must pain me? I do my best to please you, Jack. I suppose I may tell you so now that you're my guardian. You will make me so unhappy if you refuse to be friends with me.
You need not go begging for my regard. How unreal our moral judgments are. You seem to me to have absolutely no conscience, only hypocrisy, and you can't see the difference. Yet there is a sort of fascination about you. I always attend to you somehow. I should miss you if I lost you.
But isn't that only natural, Jack? We've known each other since we were children. Do you remember?
Stop. I remember everything.
Oh, I dare say we were often very silly, but
I won't have it, Anne. I am no more that schoolboy now than I am the dotard of 90 I shall grow into if I live long enough. It is over. Let me forget it.
Wasn't it a happy time?
Sit down and behave yourself. No doubt it was a happy time for you. You were a good girl and never compromised yourself. And yet the wickedest child that ever was slapped could hardly have had a better time. I can understand the success with which you bullied the other girls. Your virtue imposed on them. But tell me this. Did you ever know a good boy?
Of course. All boys are foolish sometimes, but Tavy was always a really good boy.
Yes, you're right. For some reason, you never tempted Tavy.
Tempted? Jack!
Yes, my dear Lady Mephistopheles, tempted. You were insatiably curious as to what a boy might be capable of, and diabolically clever at getting through his guard and surprising his inmost secrets.
Oh, what nonsense! All because you used to tell me long stories of the wicked things you had done. Silly boys' tricks! And you call such things inmost secrets? Boys' secrets are just like men's, and you know what they are.
No, I don't. What are they, pray?
Why, the things they tell everybody, of course.
Now, I swear I told you things I told no one else. You lured me into a compact by which we were to have no secrets from one another. We were to tell one another everything. I didn't notice that you never told me anything.
You didn't want to talk about me, Jack. You wanted to talk about yourself.
Ah, true. Horribly true. But what a devil of a child you must have been to know that weakness and to play on it for the satisfaction of your own curiosity. I wanted to brag to you to make myself interesting, and I found myself doing all sorts of mischievous things simply to have something to tell you about. I fought with boys I didn't hate, I lied about things I might just as well have told the truth about, I stole things I didn't want, I kissed little girls I didn't care for. It was all bravado, passionless and therefore unreal.
And I never told of you, Jack.
No, but if you'd wanted to stop me, you would have told me. You wanted me to go on.
Oh, that's not true. It's not true, Jack. I never wanted you to do those dull, disappointing, brutal, stupid, vulgar things. I always hoped that it would be something really heroic at last. Excuse me, Jack, but the things you did were never a bit like the things I wanted you to do. They often gave me great uneasiness, but I could not tell of you and get you into trouble. And you were only a boy. I knew you would grow out of them. Perhaps I was wrong.
Do not give way to remorse, Anne. At least 19/20 of the exploits I confessed to you were pure lies. I soon noticed that you didn't like the true stories.
Of course I knew that some of the things couldn't have happened, but I know...
You are going to remind me that some of the most disgraceful ones did.
I don't want to remind you of anything.
Yes, but even the true stories were touched up for telling. A sensitive boy's humiliations may be very good fun for ordinary thick-skinned grown-ups, but to the boy himself they are so acute, so ignominious that he cannot confess them, cannot but deny them passionately. However, perhaps it was as well for me that I romanced a bit. For on the one occasion when I told the truth, you threatened to tell of me.
Oh, never. Never once!
Yes, you did. Do you remember a dark-eyed girl named Rachel Rosetree? I got up a love affair with her, and we met one night in the garden, and we walked about very uncomfortably with our arms round one another, and kissed at parting, and were most conscientiously romantic. If that love affair had gone on, it would have bored me to death. But it didn't go on, for the next thing that happened was that Rachel cut me because she found out that I had told you. How did she find out? From you. You went to her and held the guilty secret over her head, leading her a life of abject terror and humiliation by threatening to tell on her.
And a very good thing for her, too. It was my duty to stop her misconduct, and she is thankful to me for it now.
Is she?
Well, she ought to be at all events.
It was not your duty to stop my misconduct, I suppose.
I did stop it by stopping her.
Are you sure of that? You stopped my telling you about my adventures, but how do you know that you stopped the adventures?
Do you mean to say that you went on in the same way with other girls?
No. I'd had enough of that sort of romantic tomfoolery with Rachel.
Then why did you break off our confidences and become quite strange to me?
It happened just then that I got something that I wanted to keep all to myself instead of sharing it with you.
I'm sure I shouldn't have asked for any of it if you had grudged it.
It wasn't a box of sweets, Anne. It was something you would never have let me call my own.
What?
My soul.
Oh, Do be sensible, Jack. You know you're talking nonsense.
The most solemn earnest, Anne. You didn't notice at that time that you were getting a soul too, but you were. It was not for nothing that you suddenly found you had a moral duty to chastise and reform Rachel. Up to that time you had traded pretty extensively in being a good child, but you had never set up a sense of duty to others. Well, I set one up too. Up to that time I had played the boy buccaneer with no more conscience than a fox in a poultry farm. But now I began to have scruples, to feel obligations, to find that veracity and honour were no longer goody-goody expressions in the mouths of grown-up people, but compelling principle in myself.
Yes, I suppose you're right. You were beginning to be a man, and I to be a woman.
Are you sure it was not that we were beginning to be something more? What does the beginning of manhood and womanhood mean in most people's mouths? You know, it means the beginning of love. But love began long before that for me. Love played its part in the earliest dreams and follies and romances I can remember. May I say the earliest follies and romances we can remember, though we did not understand it at the time. No, the change that came to me was the birth in me of moral passion, and I declare that according to my experience, moral passion is the only real passion.
All passions ought to be moral, Jack.
Ought? Do you think that anything is strong enough to impose oughts on a passion except a stronger passion still?
Our moral sense controls passion, Jack. Don't be stupid.
Our moral sense? And is that not a passion? Is the devil to have all the passions as well as all the good tunes? If it were not a passion, if it were not the mightiest of the passions, all the other passions would sweep it away like a leaf before a hurricane. It is the birth of that passion that turns a child into a man.
There are other passions, Jack. Very strong ones.
All the passions were in me before, but they were idle and aimless, mere childish greedinesses and cruelties, curiosities and fancies, habits and superstitions, grotesque and ridiculous to the mature intelligence. When they suddenly began to shine like newly lit flames, it was by no light of their own, but by the radiance of the dawning moral passion. That passion dignified them, gave them conscience and meaning, found them a mob of appetites, and organized them into an army of purposes and principles. My soul was born of that passion.
I noticed that you got more sense. You were a dreadfully destructive boy before that.
Destructive? Stuff. I was only mischievous.
Oh, Jack, you were very destructive. You ruined all the young fir trees by chopping off their leaders with a wooden sword. You broke all the cucumber frames with your catapult. You set fire to the common. The police arrested Tavy for it because he ran away when he couldn't stop you. You stole...
Pooh! These were battles, bombardments, stratagems to save our scalps from the Red Indians. You have no imagination, Anne. I'm 10 times more destructive now than I was then. The moral passion has taken my destructiveness in hand and directed it to moral ends. I have become a reformer, and like all reformers, an iconoclast. I no longer break cucumber frames and burn gorse bushes. I shatter creeds and demolish idols.
I'm afraid I'm too feminine to see any sense in destruction. Destruction can only destroy.
Yes, that is why it is so useful. Construction cumbers the ground with institutions made by busybodies. Destruction clears it and gives us breathing space and liberty.
It's no use, Jack. No woman will agree with you there.
That's because you confuse construction and destruction with creation and murder. They're quite different. I adore creation and abhor murder. Yes, I adore it in tree and flower, in bird and beast, even in you. It was the creative instinct that led you to attach me to you by bonds that have left their mark on me to this day. Yes, and the old childish compact between us was an unconscious love compact.
Jack!
No, don't be alarmed.
I'm not alarmed.
Then you ought to be. Where are your principles?
Jack! Are you serious or are you not?
Do you mean about the moral passion?
No, the other one. Oh, you are so silly, one never knows how to take you.
You must take me quite seriously. I am your guardian, and it is my duty to improve your mind.
The love compact is over, then, is it? I suppose you grew tired of me.
No, but the moral passion made our childish relations impossible. A jealous sense of my individuality arose in me.
You hated to be treated as a boy any longer, poor Jack.
Yes, because to be treated as a boy was to be taken on the old footing. I had become a new person, and those who knew the old person laughed at me. The only man who behaved sensibly was my tailor. He took my measure anew every time he saw me, whilst all the rest went on with their old measurements and expected them to fit me.
You became frightfully self-conscious.
When you go to heaven, Anne, you will be frightfully conscious of your wings for the first year or so. When you meet your relatives there and they persist in treating you as if you were still a mortal, you will not be able to bear them. You will try to get into a circle which has never known you except as an angel.
So it was only your vanity that made you run away from us, after all?
Yes, only my vanity, as you call it.
You need not have kept away from me on that account.
From you above all others. You fought harder than anybody against my emancipation.
Oh, how wrong you are! I would have done anything for you.
Anything except let me get loose from you. Even then you had acquired by instinct that damnable woman's trick of heaping obligations on a man, of placing yourself so entirely and helplessly at his mercy that at last he dare not take a step without running to you for leave. I know a poor wretch whose one desire in life is to run away from his wife. She prevents him by threatening to throw herself in front of the engine of the train he leaves her in. That is what all women do. If we try to go where you do not want us to go, there is no law to prevent us. But when we take the first step, your breasts are under our foot as it descends. Your bodies are under our wheels as we start. No woman shall ever enslave me in that way.
But, Jack, you cannot get through life without considering other people a little.
Aye, but what other people? It is this consideration of other people, or rather this cowardly fear of them which we call consideration, that makes us the sentimental slaves we are. To consider you, as you call it, is to substitute your will for my own. How if it be a baser will than mine? Are women taught better than men, or worse? Are mobs of voters taught better than statesmen, or worse? Worse, of course, in both cases. And then what sort of world are you going to get, with its public men considering us voting mobs, and its private men considering their wives? What does church and state mean nowadays? The woman and the ratepayer.
I'm so glad you understand politics, Jack. It will be most useful to you if you go into Parliament. But I'm sorry you thought my influence a bad one.
I don't say it was a bad one. But bad or good, I don't choose to be cut to your measure. And I won't be cut to it.
Nobody wants you to, Jack, I assure you. Really, on my word, I don't mind your queer opinions one little bit. You know, we have all been brought up to have advanced opinions. Why do you persist in thinking me so narrow-minded?
That's the danger of it. I know you don't mind, because you've found out that it doesn't matter. The boa constrictor doesn't mind the opinions of a stag one little bit when once she has got her coils around it.
Oh, now I understand why you warned Tavy that I'm a boa constrictor. Granny told me. Doesn't it feel nice and soft, Jack? My boa? If I put it round your neck?
Oh, you scandalous woman. Will you throw away even your hypocrisy?
I'm never hypocritical with you, Jack. Are you angry? Perhaps I shouldn't have done that.
Oh, prudery. Why should you not, if it amuses you?
Well, because I suppose what you really meant by the boa constrictor was this.
Your arms round my neck. Magnificent audacity. Now, just to think, if I mentioned this episode, not a soul would believe me except the people who would cut me for telling, whilst if you accused me of it, nobody would believe my denial.
Oh, you are incorrigible, Jack. But you should not jest about our affection for one another. Nobody could possibly misunderstand it. You do not misunderstand it, I hope.
My blood interprets for me, Anne. Poor Ricky-Ticky Tavy.
Surely you're not so absurd as to be jealous of Tavy.
Jealous? Why should I be? But I don't wonder at your grip of him. I feel the coils tightening round my very self, though you are only playing with me.
Do you think I have designs on Tavy?
I know you have.
Oh, take care, Jack. You may make Tavy very unhappy if you mislead him about me.
Never fear, he will not escape you.
I wonder, are you really a clever man?
Why this sudden misgiving on the subject?
You seem to understand all the things I don't understand, but you're a perfect baby in the things I do understand.
I understand how Tavy feels for you, Anne. You may depend on that at all events.
And you think you understand how I feel for Tavy, don't you?
I know only too well what is going to happen to poor Tavy.
Oh, I should laugh at you, Jack, if it were not for poor Papa's death. Mind, Tavy will be very unhappy.
Yes, but he won't know it, poor devil. He is 1,000 times too good for you. That's why he's going to make the mistake of his life about you.
I think men make more mistakes by being too clever than by being too good.
Oh, I know you don't care very much about Tavy, but there's always one who kisses and one who only allows the kiss. Tavy will kiss, and you will only turn the cheek, and you will throw him over if anybody better turns up.
You have no right to say such things, Jack. They are not true and not delicate. If you and Tavy choose to be stupid about me, that's not my fault.
Forgive my brutalities, Anne. They are levelled at this wicked world, not at you. All the same, I wish Ramsden would come back. I never feel safe with you. There is a devilish charm, or no, not a charm, a subtle interest. Just so. You know it and you triumph in it. Openly and shamelessly triumph in it.
What a shocking flirt you are, Jack.
A flirt?
Yes, a flirt. You are always abusing and offending people, but you never really mean to let go your hold of them.
I will ring the bell. This conversation has already gone further than I intended.
I wash my hands of the whole affair.
I know you wish me to take Violet away, Miss Ramsden. I will.
No, no.
What is the use of saying no, Roebuck? Octavius knows that I would not turn any truly contrite and repentant woman from your doors. But when a woman is not only wicked, but intends to go on being wicked, she and I part company.
Oh, Miss Ramsden, what do you mean? What has Violet said?
Violet is certainly very obstinate. She won't leave London. I don't understand her.
I do. It's as plain as the nose on your face, Roebuck, that she won't go because she doesn't want to be separated from this man, whoever he is.
Oh, surely, surely. Octavius, did you speak to her?
She won't tell us anything. She won't make any arrangement until she has consulted somebody. It can't be anybody else than the scoundrel who's betrayed her.
Well, let her consult him. He'll be glad enough to have her sent abroad. Where is the difficulty?
The difficulty, Mr. Jack, is that when I offered to help her, I didn't offer to become her accomplice in her wickedness. She either pledges her word never to see that man again, or else she finds some new friends. And the sooner, the better.
Excuse me, the cab is at the door, ma'am.
What cab?
For Miss Robinson.
Oh! All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
She has sent for a cab.
I wanted to send for that cab half an hour ago.
I am glad she understands the position she has placed herself in.
Don't like her going away in this fashion, Susan. We better not do anything harsh.
No, thank you again and again, but Miss Ramsden is quite right. Violet cannot expect to stay.
Hadn't you better go with her, Tavy?
She won't have me.
Of course she won't. She's going straight to that man.
As a natural result of her virtuous reception here.
There, Susan, you hear? And there's some truth in it. I wish you could reconcile it with your principles to be a little patient with this poor girl. She's very young, and there's time for everything.
Oh, she will get all the sympathy she wants from the men. Oh, I'm surprised at you, Roebuck.
So am I, Ramsden, most favourably.
I have only looked in to tell Miss Ramsden that she will find her birthday present to me, the filigree bracelet, in the housekeeper's room.
Do come in, Violet, and talk to us sensibly.
Thank you, I've had quite enough of the family conversation this morning. So was your mother, Anne. She's gone home crying. But at all events, I have found out what some of my pretended friends are worth. Goodbye.
No, one moment. I have something to say which I beg you to hear. I am altogether on your side in this matter. I congratulate you with the sincerest respect on having the courage to do what you have done. You are entirely in the right, and the family is entirely in the wrong.
Oh, Jack! Well, I must say.
Who told you?
Why, Ramsden and Tavy, of course. Why should they not?
But they don't know.
Don't know what?
They don't know that I'm in the right, I mean.
Oh, they know it in their hearts, though they think themselves bound to blame you by their silly superstitions about morality and propriety and so forth. But I know, and the whole world really knows, though it dare not say so, that you were right to follow your instinct, that vitality and bravery are the greatest qualities a woman can have, and motherhood her solemn initiation into womanhood, and that the fact of your not being legally married matters not one scrap either to your own worth or to our real regard for you.
Oh, you think me a wicked woman like the rest. You think I have not only been vile, but that I share your abominable opinions. Miss Ramsden, I have borne your hard words because I knew you would be sorry for them when you found out the truth. But I won't bear such a horrible insult as to be complimented by Jack on being one of the wretches of whom he approves. I have kept my marriage a secret for my husband's sake, but now I claim my right as a married woman not to be insulted.
You are married?
Yes, and I think you might have guessed it. What business had you all to take it for granted that I had no right to wear my wedding ring? Not one of you even asked me. I cannot forget that.
I am utterly crushed. I meant well. I apologise, abjectly apologise.
I hope you will be more careful in future about the things you say. Of course, one does not take them seriously, but they are very disagreeable and rather in bad taste, I think.
I have no defence. I shall know better in future than to take any woman's part. We have all disgraced ourselves in your eyes, I'm afraid, except Anne. She befriended you. For Anne's sake, forgive us.
Yes, Anne has been kind, but then Anne knew.
Oh, unfathomable deceit, double-crossed.
And who, pray, is the gentleman who does not acknowledge his wife?
That is my business, Miss Ramsden, and not yours. I have my reasons for keeping my marriage a secret for the present.
All I can say is we are extremely sorry, Violet. I am shocked to think of how we have treated you.
I beg your pardon, Violet. I can say no more.
Of course, what you say puts a very different complexion on the matter. All the same, I owe it to myself.
You owe me an apology, Miss Ramsden. That's what you owe both to yourself and to me. If you were a married woman, you would not like sitting in the housekeeper's room and being treated like a naughty child by young girls and old ladies without any serious duties and responsibilities.
Don't hit us when we're down, Violet. We seem to have made fools of ourselves, but really it was you who made fools of us.
It was no business of yours, Jack, in any case.
No business of mine? Why, Ramsden as good as accused me of being the unknown gentleman.
You? Oh, how infamous! How abominable! How disgracefully you have all been talking about me. If my husband knew it, he would never let me speak to any of you again. Mr. Ramsden, I think you might have spared me that, at least.
But I assure you I never... At least it's a monstrous perversion of something I said.
You needn't apologise, Roebuck. She brought it all on herself. It is for her to apologise for having deceived us.
I can make allowances for you, Miss Ramsden. You cannot understand how I feel on this subject, though I should have expected rather better taste from people of greater experience. However, I feel that you have placed yourselves in a very painful position, and the most truly considerate thing for me to do is to go at once. Good morning.
Well, I must say.
I don't think she's quite fair to us.
You must cower before the wedding ring like the rest of us, Ramsden. The cup of our ignominy is full.
On the carriage drive in the park of a country house near Richmond stands an open touring car. A pair of supine legs in dungaree overalls protrude from beneath the machine. Tanner is watching them intently with bent back and hands supported on his knees. His leathern overcoat and peaked cap proclaim him one of the dismounted passengers.
All right now?
All right now. Had enough of it, eh?
I may as well walk to the house and stretch my legs and calm my nerves a little. I suppose you know that we have come from Hyde Park Corner to Richmond in 21 minutes.
I'd have done it under 15 if I'd had a clear road all the way.
Why do you do it? Is it for love of sport or for the fun of terrifying your unfortunate employer?
What are you afraid of?
The police. And breaking my neck.
Well, if you like easy going, you can take a bus, you know. It's cheaper. You pay me to save your time and give you the value of what you paid for the car.
I am the slave of that car, and of you, too. I dream of the accursed thing at night.
You'll get over that all right. If you're going up to the house, may I ask how long you're going to stay? Because if you mean to put in the whole morning in there talking to the ladies, I'll put the car in the garage and make myself agreeable with a view to lunching here. If not, I'll keep the car on the go about here till you come.
Better wait here. We shan't be long. There's a young American gentleman, a Mr. Malone, who is driving Mr. Robinson down in his new American steam car.
American steam car? What, racing us down from London?
Well, perhaps they're here already.
If I'd known it. Why didn't you tell me, Mr. Tanner?
Because I've been told that this car is capable of 84 miles an hour, and I already know what you're capable of when there's a rival car on the road. No, Henry, there are things it is not good for you to know, and this was one of them. However, cheer up, we're going to have a day after your own heart. The American is to take Mr. Robinson and his sister and Miss Whitefield. We are to take Miss Rhoda.
That's Miss Whitefield's sister, isn't it?
Yes.
And Miss Whitefield herself is going in the other car? Not with you?
Why the devil should she come with me? Mr. Robinson will be in the other car. We've lost the race. Thank heaven. Here's Mr. Robinson. Well, Tavy, is the steam car a success?
I think so. We came from Hyde Park Corner here in 17 minutes. How long were you?
Oh, about 3/4 of an hour or so.
No, Mr. Tanner, come now. We could have done it easy in under 15.
By the way, let me introduce you. Mr. Octavius Robinson, Mr. Henry Straker.
Oh, pleased to meet you, sir. Mr. Tanner is getting at you with his Henry Straker, you know. You call it Henry, but I don't mind, bless you.
You think it's simply bad taste in me to chafe him, Tavy, but you're wrong. This man takes more trouble to drop his H's than ever his father did to pick them up. It's a mark of caste to him. I have never met anybody more swollen with pride of class than Henry is.
Easy. A little moderation, Mr. Tanner.
A little moderation, Tavy, you observe. You would tell me to draw it mild. But this chap has been educated. What's more, he knows that we haven't. What was the board school of yours, Straker?
Sherbrooke Road.
Sherbrooke Road. Would any of us say Rugby, Harrow, Eton in that tone of intellectual snobbery? Sherbrooke Road is a place where boys learn something. Eton is a boy farm where we are sent because we are nuisances at home and because in afterlife, whenever a duke is mentioned, we can claim him as an old schoolfellow.
You don't know nothing about it, Mr. Tanner. It's not the board school that does it. It's the Polytechnic.
His university, Octavius. Not Oxford, Cambridge, Durham, Dublin or Glasgow, not even those nonconformist holes in Wales. No, Tavy, Regent Street, Chelsea, the Borough. I don't know half their confounded names. These are his universities, not mere shops for selling class limitations like ours. You despise Oxford, Henry, don't you?
No, I don't. Very nice sort of place, Oxford, I should think, for people that like that sort of place. They teach you to be a gentleman there. In the Polytechnic, they teach you to be an engineer or such like. See?
Sarcasm, Tavy, sarcasm. Oh, if you could only see into Henry's soul, the depth of his contempt for a gentleman, the arrogance of his pride in being an engineer would appall you. He positively likes the car to break down because it brings out my gentlemanly helplessness and his workmanlike skill and resource.
Never you mind him, Mr. Robinson. He likes to talk. We know him, don't we?
But there's a great truth at the bottom of what he says. I believe most intensely the dignity of labour.
That's because you've never done any, Mr. Robinson. My business is to do away with labour. You'll get more out of me in a machine than you will out of 20 labourers, and not so much to drink either.
For heaven's sake, Tavy, don't start him on political economy. He knows all about it, and we don't. You're only a poetic socialist, Tavy. He's a scientific one.
Yes, well, this conversation is very improving, but I've got to look after the car. And you two want to talk about your ladies. I know. Besides, I need a smoke.
That's a very momentous social phenomenon.
What is?
Straker is. Here have we, literary and cultured persons, been for years setting up a cry of the new woman whenever some unusually old-fashioned female came along, and never noticing the advent of the new man. Straker's the new man.
I see nothing new about him, except your way of chaffing him. But I don't want to talk about him just now. I want to speak to you about Anne.
Well, Straker knew even that. He learned it at the Polytechnic, probably. Well, what about Anne? Have you proposed to her?
I was brute enough to do so last night.
Brute enough? What do you mean?
Jack, we men are all coarse. We never understand how exquisite a woman's sensibilities are. How could I have done such a thing?
Done what, you maudlin idiot?
Yes, I am an idiot, Jack. If you had heard her voice, if you had seen her tears. I've lain awake all night thinking of them. If she had reproached me, I could have borne it better.
Tears? That's dangerous. What did she say?
She asked me how she could think of anything now but her dear father. She stifled a sob and...
Bear it like a man, Tavy, even if you feel it like an ass. It's the old game. She's not tired of playing with you yet.
Oh, don't be a fool, Jack. Do you suppose this eternal, shallow cynicism of yours has any real bearing on a nature like hers?
Did she say anything else?
Yes. And that is why I expose myself and her to your ridicule by telling you what passed.
No, dear Tavy, not ridicule, on my honour. However, no matter. Go on.
Her sense of duty is so devout, so perfect, so...
Yes, I know. Go on.
You see, under this new arrangement, you and Ramsden are her guardians, and she considers that all her duty to her father is now transferred to you. She said she thought I ought to have spoken to you both in the first instance. Of course she's right. But somehow it seems rather absurd that I am to come to you and formally ask to be received as a suitor for your ward's hand.
Well, I am glad that love has not totally extinguished your sense of humour, Tavy.
That answer won't satisfy you.
My official answer is, obviously, bless you, my children, may you be happy.
I wish you'd stop playing the fool about this. If it's not serious to you, it is to me and to her.
You know very well that she is as free to choose as you are.
She does not think so.
Oh, doesn't she? Just. However, say what you want me to do.
I want you to tell her sincerely and earnestly what you think about me. I want you to tell her that you can trust her to me. That is, if you feel you can.
I have no doubt that I can trust her to you. What worries me is the idea of trusting you to her. Have you read Maeterlinck's book about the bee?
I'm not discussing literature at present.
Be just a little patient with me. I am not discussing literature. The book about the bee is natural history. It's an awful lesson to mankind. You think that you are Anne's suitor, that you are the pursuer and she the pursued, that it is your part to woo, to persuade, to prevail, to overcome. Fool, it is you who are the pursued, the marked down quarry, the destined prey. You need not sit looking longingly at the bait through the wires of the trap. The door is open and will remain so until it shuts behind you forever.
I wish I could believe that. Vilely as you put it.
Why, man, what other work has she in life but to get a husband? It is a woman's business to get married as soon as possible, and a man's to keep unmarried as long as he can. You have your poems and your tragedies to work at. Anne has nothing.
I cannot write without inspiration, and nobody can give me that except Anne.
Well, hadn't you better get it from her at a safe distance? Petrarch didn't see half as much of Laura nor Dante of Beatrice as you see of Anne now, and yet they wrote first-rate poetry, at least so I'm told. They never exposed their idolatry to the test of domestic familiarity, and it lasted them to their graves. Marry Anne, and at the end of a week you'll find no more inspiration in her than in a plate of muffins.
You think I shall tire of her?
Not at all. You don't get tired of muffins, but you don't find inspiration in them. And you won't in her when she ceases to be a poet's dream and becomes a solid 11-stone wife. You'll be forced to dream about somebody else, and then there will be a row.
This sort of talk is no use, Jack. You don't understand. You've never been in love.
I have never been out of it. Why, I am in love even with Anne, but I am neither the slave of love nor its dupe. Go to the bee, thou poet, consider her ways and be wise. By heaven, Tavy, if women could do without our work, and we ate their children's bread instead of making it, they would kill us as the spider kills her mate or as the bees kill the drone, and they would be right if we were good for nothing but love.
Ah, if we were only good enough for love. There is nothing like love. There is nothing else but love. Without it, the world would be a dream of sordid horror.
And this is the man who asks me to give him the hand of my ward. Tavy, I believe we were changed in our cradles, and that you are the real descendant of Don Juan.
I beg you not to say anything like that to Anne.
Don't be afraid. She has marked you for her own, and nothing will stop her now. You are doomed. Here comes the new man, demoralising himself with a halfpenny paper as usual.
Now, would you believe it, Mr. Robinson? When we're out motoring, we take in two papers. The Times for him, the Leader or the Echo for me. And do you think I ever see my paper? Not much. He grabs a lead and leaves me to stodge myself with his Times.
Are there no winners in the Times?
Henry don't hold with betting, Tavy. Motor records are his weakness. What's the latest?
Paris to Biscuit at 40 miles an hour average, not counting the Mediterranean.
How many killed?
2 silly sheep. What does it matter? Sheep don't cost such a lot. They were glad to have the price without the trouble of selling them to the butcher. All the same, you see, there'll be a clamour again it presently, and then the French government will stop it, and our chance will be gone, see? That's what makes me fairly mad. Mr. Tanner won't do a good run while he can.
Tavy, do you remember my Uncle James?
Yes, why?
Uncle James had a first-rate cook. He couldn't digest anything except what she cooked. Well, the poor man was shy and hated society, but his cook was proud of her skill and wanted to serve up dinners to princes and ambassadors. To prevent her from leaving him, that poor old man had to give a big dinner twice a month and suffer agonies of awkwardness. Now, here am I, and here is this chap, Henry Straker, the new man. I loathe travelling, but I rather like Henry. He cares for nothing but tearing along in a leather coat and goggles with 2 inches of dust all over him at 60 miles an hour and the risk of his life and mine, except, of course, when he is lying on his back in the mud under the machine trying to find out where it has given way. Well, if I don't give him a 1,000-mile run at least once a fortnight, I shall lose him. He will give me the sack and go to some American millionaire, and I shall have to put up with a nice, respectful groom, gardener, amateur who will touch his hat and know his place. I am Henry's slave, just as Uncle James was his cook's slave.
Oh, I wish I had a car that would go as fast as you can talk, Mr. Tanner. What I say is that you lose money by a motor car unless you keep it working. Might as well have a pram and a nursemaid to wheel you in it as that car and me if you don't get the last inch out of us both.
All right, Henry, all right. We'll go out for half an hour presently.
Oh, for now.
Oh, that reminds me. I have a note for you from Rhoda.
I rather think Rhoda is heading for a row with Anne. As a rule, there is only one person an English girl hates more than she hates her eldest sister, and that's her mother. But Rhoda positively prefers her mother to Anne. She... Oh, I say.
What's the matter?
Rhoda was to have come with me for a ride in the motor car. She says Anne has forbidden her to go out with me.
Does she give any reason?
Reason? An insult is not a reason. Anne forbids her to be alone with me on any occasion. Says I am not a fit person for a young girl to be with. What do you think of your paragon now?
You must remember that she has a very heavy responsibility, now that her father is dead. Mrs. Whitefield is too weak to control Rhoda.
In short, you agree with Anne?
No, but I think I understand her. You must admit that your views are hardly suited for the formation of a young girl's mind and character.
I admit nothing of the sort. I admit that the formation of a young lady's mind and character usually consists in telling her lies, but I object to the particular lie that I am in the habit of abusing the confidence of girls.
Anne doesn't say that, Jack.
What else does she mean?
Mr. Whitefield, gentlemen. I'll be down the avenue, sir.
Good morning, Jack. I've come to tell you that poor Rhoda has got one of her headaches and cannot go out with you today in the car. It is a cruel disappointment to her poor child.
What do you say now, Tavy?
Surely you cannot misunderstand, Jack. Anne is showing you the kindest consideration, even at the cost of deceiving you.
What do you mean?
Would you like to cure Rhoda's headache, Anne?
Of course.
Then tell her what you said just now, and add that you arrived about 2 minutes after I had received her letter and read it.
Rhoda has written to you?
With full particulars.
Never mind him, Anne. You were right, quite right. Anne was only doing her duty, Jack, and you know it. Doing it in the kindest way, too.
How kind you are, Tavy. How helpful. How well you understand.
Aye, tighten the coils. You love her, Tavy, don't you?
She knows I do.
Oh, shh. For shame, Tavy.
Oh, I give you leave. I am your guardian, and I commit you to Tavy's care for the next hour. I am off for a turn in the car.
No, Jack, I must speak to you about Rhoda. Ricky, will you go back to the house and entertain your American friend? He's rather on Mamma's hands so early in the morning. She wants to finish her housekeeping.
I fly. Dearest Anne.
Ricky Ticky Tavy.
Now, look here, Anne. This time you've landed yourself. And if Tavy were not in love with you past all salvation, he'd have found out what an incorrigible liar you are.
Oh, you misunderstand, Jack. I didn't dare tell Tavy the truth.
No, your daring is generally in the opposite direction. What the devil do you mean by telling Rhoda that I am too vicious to associate with her? How can I ever have any human or decent relations with her again, now that you have poisoned her mind in that abominable way?
I know you are incapable of behaving badly.
Then why did you lie to her?
I had to.
Had to?
Mother made me.
Ha! I might have known it. The mother. Always the mother.
It was that dreadful book of yours. You know how timid Mother is. All timid women are conventional. We must be conventional, Jack, or we are so cruelly, so vilely misunderstood. Even you, who are a man, cannot say what you think without being misunderstood and vilified. Yes, I admit it. I have had to vilify you. Do you want to have poor Rhoda misunderstood and vilified in the same way? Would it be right for Mother to let her expose herself to such treatment before she is old enough to judge for herself?
In short, the way to avoid misunderstanding is for everybody to lie and slander and insinuate and pretend as hard as they can. That is what obeying your mother comes to.
I love my mother, Jack.
Is that any reason why you are not to call your soul your own? Oh, I protest against this vile abjection of youth to age. Look at fashionable society as you know it. What does it pretend to be? An exquisite dance of nymphs. What is it? A horrible procession of wretched girls, each in the claws of a cynical, cunning, avaricious, disillusioned, ignorantly experienced, foul-minded old woman whom she calls mother, and whose duty it is to corrupt her mind and sell her to the highest bidder. Why do these unhappy slaves marry anybody, however old and vile, sooner than not marry at all? Because marriage is their only means of escape from these decrepit fiends who hide their selfish ambitions, their jealous hatreds of the young rivals who have supplanted them, under the mask of maternal duty and family affection. Such things are abominable. The voice of nature proclaims for the daughter a father's care and for the son a mother's. The law for father and son and mother and daughter is not the law of love, it is the law of revolution, of emancipation, of final supersession of the old and worn out by the young and capable. I tell you, the first duty of manhood and womanhood is a declaration of independence. The man who pleads his father's authority is no man. The woman who pleads her mother's authority is unfit to bear citizens to a free people.
I suppose you will go in seriously for politics some day, Jack.
Eh? What? What's that got to do with what I've been saying?
You talk so well.
Talk! Talk! It means nothing to you but talk! Well, go back to your mother and help her to poison Rhoda's imagination as she has poisoned yours. It is the tame elephants who enjoy capturing the wild ones.
Oh, I'm getting on. Yesterday I was a boa constrictor. Today I am an elephant.
Yes, so pack your trunk and begone. I have no more to say to you.
You are so utterly unreasonable and impracticable. What can I do?
Do break your chains. Go your way according to your conscience and not according to your mother's. Get your mind clean and vigorous, and learn to enjoy a fast ride in a motor car instead of seeing nothing in it but an excuse for a detestable intrigue. Come with me to Marseille and across to Algiers and to Biskra at 60 miles an hour. Come right down to the Cape, if you like. That'll be a declaration of independence with a vengeance. You can write a book about it afterwards. That'll finish your mother and make a woman of you.
I don't think there would be any harm in that, Jack. You are my guardian. You stand in my father's place by his own wish. Nobody could say a word against our travelling together. It would be delightful. Thank you 1,000 times, Jack. I'll come.
You'll come?
Of course.
But, now look here, Anne, if there's no harm in it, there's no point in doing it.
Oh, how absurd you are. You don't want to compromise me, do you?
Yes, that's the whole sense of my proposal.
You are talking the greatest nonsense, and you know it. You would never do anything to hurt me.
Well, if you don't want to be compromised, don't come.
Oh, yes, I will come, Jack, since you wish it. You are my guardian, and I think we ought to see more of one another and come to know one another better. It's very thoughtful and kind of you, Jack, to offer me this lovely holiday, especially after what I said about Rhoda. You really are good. Much better than you think. When do we start?
But...
Oh, Mamma! What do you think? Jack is going to take me to Nice in his motor car. Isn't it lovely? I am the happiest person in London.
Mrs. Whitefield objects. I am sure she objects, doesn't she, Ramsden?
I should think it very likely indeed.
You don't object, do you, Mother?
I object. Why should I? I think it will do you good, Anne. I meant to ask you to take Rhoda out for a run occasionally. She's too much in the house. But it will do when you come back.
Abyss beneath abyss of perfidy.
Oh, I forgot. You have not met Mr. Malone. Mr. Tanner, my guardian. Mr. Hector Malone.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Tanner. I should like to suggest an extension of the travelling party to Nice, if I may.
Oh, we're all coming. That's understood, isn't it?
I also am the modest possessor of a motor car. If Miss Robinson will allow me the privilege of taking her, my car is at her service.
Violet!
Come, Mother, we must leave them to talk over the arrangements. I must see to my travelling kit.
I think I may go so far as to say that I can depend on Miss Robinson's consent.
I'm afraid we must leave Violet behind. There are circumstances which make it impossible for her to come on such an expedition.
To American, eh? Must the young lady have a chaperone?
It's not that, Malone, at least not altogether.
Indeed. May I ask what other objection applies?
Oh, tell him, tell him. We shall never be able to keep the secret unless everybody knows what it is. Mr. Malone, if you go to Nice with Violet, you go with another man's wife. She is married.
You don't tell me so.
We do, in confidence.
Her marriage has not yet been made known. She desires that it shall not be mentioned for the present.
I shall respect the lady's wishes. Would it be indiscreet to ask who her husband is, in case I should have an opportunity of consulting him about this trip?
We don't know who he is.
In that case, I have no more to say.
You must think this very strange.
A little singular. Pardon me for saying so.
Well, the young lady was married secretly, and our husband has forbidden her, it seems, to declare his name. It's only right to tell you, since you are interested in in Violet.
I hope this is not a disappointment to you.
Well, it is a blow. I can hardly understand how a man can leave his wife in such a position. Surely it's not customary, it's not manly, it's not considerate.
We feel that, as you may imagine, pretty deeply.
It's some young fool who has not had enough experience to know what mystifications of this kind lead to.
I hope so. A man need be very young and pretty foolish, too, to be excused for such conduct. You take a very lenient view, Mr. Ramsden. Too lenient to my mind. Surely marriage should ennoble a man.
Ha!
Am I to gather from that cachinnation that you don't agree with me, Mr. Tanner?
Get married and try. You may find it delightful for a while, you certainly won't find it ennobling. The greatest common measure of a man and a woman is not necessarily greater than the man's single measure.
Well, we think in America that a woman's moral number is higher than a man's, and that the purer nature of a woman lifts a man right out of himself, and makes him better than he was.
So it does.
No wonder American women prefer to live in Europe. It's more comfortable than standing all their lives on an altar to be worshipped. Anyhow, Violet's husband has not been ennobled. So, what's to be done?
I can't dismiss that man's conduct as lightly as you do, Mr. Tanner. However, I'll say no more. Whoever he is, he's Miss Robinson's husband, and I should be glad for her sake to think better of him.
I'm very sorry, Malone. Very sorry.
You're a good fellow, Robinson. Thank you.
Talk about something else. Violet's coming from the house.
I should esteem it a very great favor, gentlemen, if you would take the opportunity to let me have a few words with the lady alone. I shall have to cry off this trip, and it's rather a delicate...
No, say no more. Come, Tanner.
Yep.
Come, Tavy. We'll take a walk.
Are they looking?
No.
Have you been telling lies for my sake?
Lying? Lying hardly describes it. I overdo it. I get carried away in an ecstasy of mendacity. Violet, I wish you'd let me own up.
No, no, Hector. You promised me not to.
I'll keep my promise until you release me from it. But I feel mean lying to those men and denying my wife. Just dastardly.
I wish your father were not so unreasonable.
He's not unreasonable. He's right from his point of view. He has a prejudice against the English middle class.
It's too ridiculous. You know how I dislike saying such things to you, Hector, but if I were to... Oh, well, no matter.
I know. If you were to marry the son of an English manufacturer of office furniture, your friends would consider it a misalliance. And here's my silly old dad, who is the biggest office furniture man in the world, would show me the door for marrying the most perfect lady in England merely because she has no handle to her name. Of course, it's just absurd, but I tell you, Violet, I don't like deceiving him. I feel as if I was stealing his money. Why won't you let me own up?
We can't afford it. You can be as romantic as you please with love, Hector, but you mustn't be romantic about money.
That's very English. Violet, Dad's bound to find us out someday.
Oh, yes. Later on, of course. But don't let's go over this every time we meet, dear. You promise...
All right.
It is I, and not you, who suffer by this concealment. And as to facing a struggle and poverty and all that sort of thing, I simply will not do it. It's too silly.
You shall not. I'll sort of borrow the money from my dad until I get on my own feet, and then I can own up and pay up at the same time.
Do you mean to work? Do you want to spoil our marriage?
Well, I don't mean to let marriage spoil my character. Your friend, Mr. Tanner, has got the laugh on me a bit already about that, and...
Oh, the beast. I hate Jack Tanner.
Oh, he's all right. He only needs the love of a good woman to ennoble him. Well, besides, he's proposed a motoring trip to Nice, and I'm going to take you.
How jolly.
Yes, but how are we going to manage? You see, they've warned me off going with you, so to speak. They've told me in confidence that you're married. That's just the most overwhelming confidence I've ever been honored with.
Your car is a great success, Mr. Malone. Your engineer is showing it off to Mr. Ramsden.
Well, let's come, Vi.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Malone. I did not quite catch...
Oh, I asked to be allowed the pleasure of showing you my little American steam car, Miss Robinson.
I shall be very pleased.
About this trip, Straker.
Yes?
Miss Whitefield is supposed to be coming with me.
So I gather.
Mr. Robinson is to be one of the party.
Yes?
Well, if you can manage so as to be a good deal occupied with me and leave Mr. Robinson a good deal occupied with Miss Whitefield, he will be deeply grateful to you.
Evidently.
Evidently? Your grandfather would have simply winked.
My grandfather would have touched his hat.
And I would have given your good, nice, respectful grandfather a sovereign.
5 shillings more likely. What about the lady's views?
She is just as willing to be left to Mr. Robinson as Mr. Robinson is to be left to her. Oh, stop that aggravating noise. What do you mean by it? Henry, I have ever been a warm advocate of the spread of music among the masses, but I object to your obliging the company whenever Miss Whitefield's name is mentioned. You did it this morning, too.
It's not a bit of use. Mr. Robinson may as well give it up first as last.
Why?
Oh, you know why. Of course, it's not my business, but you needn't start kidding me about it.
I am not kidding. I don't know why.
Oh, very well. All right. It ain't my business.
I trust, Henry, that as between employer and engineer, I shall always know how to keep my proper distance and not intrude my private affairs on you. Even our business arrangements are subject to the approval of your trade union, but don't abuse your advantages. Let me remind you that Voltaire said that what was too silly to be said could be sung.
It wasn't Voltaire. It was Beaumarchais.
I stand corrected. Beaumarchais, of course. Now, you seem to think that what is too delicate to be said can be whistled. Unfortunately, your whistling, though melodious, is unintelligible. Come, there's nobody listening, neither my genteel relatives nor the secretary of your confounded union. As man to man, Henry, why do you think my friend has no chance with Miss Whitefield?
Because she's after someone else.
Bosh! Who else?
You.
Me?
Mean to tell me you didn't know? Oh, come, Mr. Tanner.
Are you playing a fool, or do you mean it?
I'm not playing no fool. Why, it's as plain as the nose on your face. If you ain't spotted that, you don't know much about these sort of things. Excuse me, you know, Mr. Tanner, but you asked me as man to man, and I told you as man to man.
Then I am the bee, the spider, the marked-down victim, the destined prey.
I don't know about the bee and the spider, but the marked-down victim, that's what you are, and no mistake. And a jolly good job for you too, I should say.
Henry Straker, the golden moment of your life has arrived.
What do you mean?
That record to Biskra.
Yes?
Break it.
Do you mean it?
I do.
When?
Now. Is that machine ready to start?
But you can't...
Off we go. First to the bank for money, then to my rooms for my kit, then to your rooms for your kit, then break the record from London to Dover or Folkestone, then across the Channel and away like mad to Marseille, Gibraltar, Genoa, any port from which we can sail to a Mahometan country where men are protected from women.
Ah, you're kidding.
Stay behind then. If you won't come, I'll do it alone.
Hey, Mr. Arthur, Mo! Steady on!
Evening in the Sierra Nevada. Rolling slopes of brown with olive trees instead of apple trees in the cultivated patches, and occasional prickly pears instead of gorse and bracken in the wilds. Higher up, tall stone peaks and precipices, all handsome and distinguished. No wild nature here, rather a most aristocratic mountain landscape made by a fastidious artist-creator. No vulgar profusion of vegetation, even a touch of aridity in the frequent patches of stones. Spanish magnificence and Spanish economy everywhere. On the hill, watching the road, is a man who's either a Spaniard or a Scotchman. Probably a Spaniard, since he wears the dress of a Spanish goatherd and seems at home in the Sierra Nevada, but very like a Scotchman for all that. In the hollow on the slope leading to the quarry cave are about a dozen men who, as they recline at their ease around a heap of smouldering white ashes of dead leaf and brushwood, have an air of being conscious of themselves as picturesque scoundrels, honouring the Sierra by using it as an effective pictorial background. As a matter of artistic fact, they are not picturesque, and the mountains tolerate them as lions tolerate lice. An English policeman or poor law guardian would recognise them as a selected band of tramps and able-bodied paupers. Their chief, seated in the centre of the group on a squared block of stone from the quarry, is a tall, strong man with a striking cockatoo nose, glossy black hair, pointed beard, upturned moustache, and a Mephistophelian affectation which is fairly imposing. He has a fine voice and a ready wit, and whether he is really the strongest man in the party or not, he looks it. He's certainly the best fed, the best dressed, and the best trained. The fact that he speaks English is not unexpected in spite of the Spanish landscape, for with the exception of one man who might be guessed as a bullfighter ruined by drink, and one unmistakable Frenchman, they are all Cockney or American. Therefore, in a land of cloaks and sombreros, they mostly wear seedy overcoats, woolen mufflers, hard hemispherical hats, and dirty brown gloves. Only a very few dress after their leader, whose broad sombrero with a cock's feather in the band and voluminous cloak descending to his high boots are as un-English as possible.
Friends and fellow brigands, I have a proposal to make to this meeting. We have now spent 3 evenings in discussing the question, have anarchists or social democrats the most personal courage? We have gone into the principles of anarchism and social democracy at great length. The cause of anarchy has been ably represented by our one anarchist who doesn't know what anarchism is.
Point of order, Mendoza.
By thunder, your last point of order took half an hour. Besides, anarchists don't believe in order.
That is a vulgar error. I can prove...
Order!
Yes.
On the other hand, we have 3 social democrats among us, and they are not on speaking terms. And they have put before us 3 distinct and incompatible views of social democracy.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I protest.
Je demande la parole. C'est absolument
Order! Now, we tolerate all options here, but after all, comrades, the vast majority of us are neither anarchists nor socialists, but gentlemen and Christians.
Right. You ain't no Christian, you're a sheeny, you are.
My friend, I am an exception to all rules. It is true that I have the honor to be a Jew, and when the Zionists need a leader to reassemble our race on its historic soil of Palestine, Mendoza will not be the last to volunteer.
Yeah.
But I am not a slave to any superstition. I have swallowed all the formulas, even that of socialism. Though in a sense, once a socialist, always a socialist.
Yeah.
But I am well aware that the ordinary man, even the ordinary brigand, who can scarcely be called an ordinary man, is not a philosopher. Common sense is good enough for him, and in our business affairs, common sense is good enough for me. Well, what is our business here in the Sierra Nevada, chosen by the Moors as the fairest spot in Spain? Is it to discuss abstruse questions of political economy? No! It is to hold up motor cars and secure a more equitable distribution of wealth.
They're all made by labour, mind you.
Undoubtedly, all made by labour, and on its way to be squandered by wealthy vagabonds in the dens of vice that disfigure the sunny shores of the Mediterranean. We intercept that wealth. We restore it to circulation among the class that produced it and that chiefly needs it, the working class. We do this at the risk of our lives and liberties, by the exercise of the virtues of courage, endurance, foresight, and abstinence. Especially abstinence. I myself have eaten nothing but prickly pears and broiled rabbit for 3 days.
No more ain't we.
Well, have I taken more than my share?
Why should you? Why should he not? To each according to his needs, from each according to his means.
I agree with both of you.
Yeah, bravo, Mendoza.
That's right.
And what I say is, let us treat one another as gentlemen and strive to excel in personal courage only when we take the field.
Shakespeare.
Automobile! Automobile!
To arms! Who has the gun?
Here.
Have the nails been strewn in the road?
2 ounces of them.
Good. With me, Duval. If the nails fail, puncture their tires with a bullet. Where are my opera glasses? 2 only. I got at least, and his chauffeur. They look English.
English! Oh, yes! Cochon! Faut tirer, n'est-ce pas?
No! The nails have gone home. Their tire is down. They stop.
Fondez sur eux, nom de Dieu!
Du calme, Duval. Keep your hair on. They take it quietly. Let us descend and receive them.
Is this the gentleman you describe as your boss? Does he speak English?
Of course he does. You don't suppose we Englishmen let ourselves be bossed by a blooming Spaniard, do you?
Allow me to introduce myself. Mendoza, President of the League of the Sierra. I am a brigand. I live by robbing the rich.
I am a gentleman. I live by robbing the poor. Shake hands.
Yeah, where do I come in?
My friend and chauffeur.
Well, which is he, friend or chauffeur? It makes all the difference, you know.
We should expect a ransom for a friend. A professional chauffeur is free of the mountains. He even takes a trifling percentage of his principal's ransom if he will honour us by accepting it.
I see. Just to encourage me to come this way again. Well, I'll think about it.
Mon frère!
Get out, don't be silly. Who are you, pray?
Duval, social-démocrate.
Oh, you're a social democrat, are you?
He means that he has sold out to the parliamentary humbugs and bourgeoisie. Compromise, that is his faith.
I understand what he's saying. He say bourgeois. He say compromise. Jamais de la vie. Misérable menteur.
See here, Captain Mendoza, how much of this sort of thing do you put up with here? Are we having a pleasure trip in the mountains, or are we at a socialist meeting?
Be quiet.
Can we offer you anything? Broiled rabbit and prickly pears?
Thank you, we have dined.
Gentlemen, business is over for the day. Go as you please until morning.
Don't none of you go fooling with that car, do you hear?
No fear, Monsieur le Chauffeur. The first one we captured cured us of that.
What did it do?
It carried 3 brave comrades of ours who did not know how to stop it into Granada and capsized them opposite the police station. Since then, we never touch one without sending for the chauffeur. Shall we chat at our ease?
By all means.
It is the custom in Spain always to put off business until tomorrow, and in fact you have arrived out of office hours. However, if you would prefer to settle the question of ransom at once, I am at your service.
Oh, tomorrow will do for me. I am rich enough to pay anything in reason.
You are a remarkable man, sir. Our guests usually describe themselves as miserably poor.
Miserably poor people don't own motor cars.
Precisely what we say to them.
Treat us well, we shall not prove ungrateful.
No prickly pears and broiled rabbits, you know. Don't tell me you can't do us a bit better than that, if you like.
Wine, kids, milk, cheese and bread can be procured for ready money.
Now you're talking.
Are you all socialists here, may I ask?
Oh, no. Nothing of the kind, I assure you. We naturally have modern views as to the injustice of the existing distribution of wealth, otherwise we should lose our self-respect. But nothing that you could take exception to, except 2 or 3 Pharisees.
I had no intention of suggesting anything discreditable. In fact, I'm a bit of a socialist myself.
Most rich men are, I notice.
Quite so. It has reached us, I admit. It is in the air of the century.
Socialism must be looking up a bit, if your chaps are taking to it.
That is true, sir. A movement which is confined to philosophers and honest men can never exercise any real political influence. There are too few of them. Until a movement shows itself capable of spreading among brigands, it can never hope for political majority.
But are your brigands any less honest than ordinary citizens?
Sir, I will be frank with you. Brigandage is abnormal. Abnormal professions attract 2 classes, those who are not good enough for ordinary bourgeois life and those who are too good for it. We are dregs and scum, sir. The dregs very filthy, the scum very superior.
Take care, some of the dregs will hear you.
It does not matter. Each brigand thinks himself scum and likes to hear the others called dregs.
Come, you are a wit. May one ask you a blunt question?
As blunt as you please.
How does it pay a man of your talent to shepherd such a flock as this on broiled rabbit and prickly pears? I have seen men less gifted, and I'll swear less honest, supping at the Savoy on foie gras and champagne.
Oh, they've all had their turn at the broiled rabbit, just as I shall have my turn at the Savoy. Indeed, I have had a turn there already as a waiter.
A waiter? You astonish me.
Yes, I, Mendoza of the Sierra, was a waiter. Hence perhaps my cosmopolitanism. Shall I tell you the story of my life?
If it ain't too long, old chap.
You are a Philistine, Henry. You have no romance in you. You interest me extremely, President. Never mind, Henry. He can go to sleep.
The woman I loved.
Oh, this is a love story, is it? Right you are. Go on. I was only afraid you were going to talk about yourself.
Myself. I have thrown myself away for her sake. That is why I am here. No matter. I count the world well lost for her. She had, I pledge you my word, the most magnificent head of hair I ever saw. She had humour, she had intellect, she could cook to perfection, and her highly strung temperament made her uncertain, incalculable, variable, capricious, cruel, in a word, enchanting.
A 6-shilling novel sort of woman, all but the cooking. Her name was Lady Gladys Plantagenet, wasn't it?
No, sir, she is not an earl's daughter. Photography reproduced by the half-tone process has made me familiar with the appearance of the daughters of the English peerage, and I can honestly say that I would have sold the lot, faces, dowries, clothes, titles, and all, for a smile from this woman. Yet she was a woman of the people, a worker. Otherwise, let me reciprocate your bluntness, I should have scorned her.
Very properly. And did she respond to your love?
Should I be here if she did? She objected to marry a Jew.
On religious grounds?
Oh, no, she was a free thinker. She said that every Jew considers in his heart that English people are dirty in their habits.
Dirty?
It showed her extraordinary knowledge of the world, for it is undoubtedly true. Our elaborate sanitary code makes us unduly contemptuous of the Gentiles.
Did you ever hear that, Henry?
I've heard my sister say so. She was cooking a Jewish family once.
I could not deny it. Neither could I eradicate the impression it made on her mind. I could have got around any other objection. But no woman can stand a suspicion of indelicacy as to her person. My entreaties were in vain. She always retorted that she wasn't good enough for me, and recommended me to marry an accursed barmaid named Rebecca Lazarus, whom I loathed. I talked of suicide. She offered me a packet of beetle poison to do it with. I hinted at murder. She went into hysterics, and as I am a living man, I went to America so that she might sleep without dreaming that I was stealing upstairs to cut her throat. In America, I went out west, and fell in with a man who was wanted by the police for holding up trains. It was he who had the idea of holding up motor cars in the south of Europe, a welcome idea to a desperate and disappointed man. He gave me some valuable introductions to capitalists of the right sort. I formed a syndicate, and the present enterprise is the result. I became leader, as the Jew always becomes leader by his brains and imagination. But with all my pride of race, I would give everything I possess to be an Englishman. I'm like a boy. I cut her name on the trees and her initials on the sod. When I am alone, I lie down and tear my wretched hair and cry, Louisa.
Louisa?
What's her name? Louisa Straker.
Straker?
Look here, Louisa Straker is my sister, see? What do you mean by gassing about her like this? What's she got to do with you?
A dramatic coincidence. You are Henry, her favourite brother.
Who are you calling Henry? What call of you to take a liberty with my name or with hers? For 2 pins I'd punch your fat head, so I would.
If I let you do it, will you promise to brag of it afterwards to her? She will be reminded of her Mendoza. That is all that I desire.
This is genuine devotion, Henry. You should respect it.
Funk, more likely.
Funk? Young man, I come of a famous family of fighters, and as your sister well knows, you will have as much chance against me as a perambulator against your motor car.
I ain't afraid of you, with your Louisa. Miss Straker is good enough for you, I should think.
I wish you could persuade her to think so.
Here,
come, Henry. Even if you could fight the President, you can't fight the whole League of the Sierra. Sit down again and be friendly. A cat may look at a king, and even a president of brigands may look at your sister. All this family pride is really very old-fashioned.
Let him look at her. But what does he mean by making out that she ever looks at him? Hear him talk. One would think she was keeping company with him. I'm going to sleep.
Oh, it was just so with her, sir. Her intellect reached forward into the 20th century. Her social prejudices and family affections reached back into the Dark Ages. Ah, sir. How the words of Shakespeare seem to fit every crisis in our emotions. I loved Louisa, 40,000 brothers could not with all their quantity of love make up my sum, and so on. I forget the rest. Call it madness, if you will. Infatuation. I am an able man, a strong man. In 10 years I should have owned a first-class hotel. I met her, and you see, I am a brigand, an outcast. Even Shakespeare cannot do justice to what I feel for Louisa. Let me read you some lines that I have written about her myself. However slight their literary merit may be, they express what I feel far better than any casual words can.
Put them in the fire, President.
Eh?
You are sacrificing your career to a monomania.
I know it.
No, you don't. No man would commit such a crime against himself if he really knew what he was doing. How can you look around at these august hills, look up at this divine sky, taste this finely tempered air, and then talk like a literary hack on a second floor in Bloomsbury?
Well, Sierra is no better than Bloomsbury when once the novelty is worn off. Besides, these mountains make you dream of women. Women with magnificent hair.
Of Louisa, in short. They will not make me dream of women, my friend. I am heart-whole.
Do not boast until morning, sir. This is a strange country for dreams.
Well, we shall see. Good night.
Just allow me to read a few lines before you go to sleep. I should really like your opinion of them.
Go on. I am listening.
I saw thee first in Whitsun Week. Louisa, Louisa.
My dear President, Louisa is a very pretty name, but it really doesn't rhyme well to Whitsun Week.
Well, of course not. Louisa is not the rhyme, but the refrain.
Ah, the refrain. I beg your pardon.
No, go on. Perhaps you do not care for that one. I think you will like this better. Louisa, I love thee. I love thee, Louisa. Louisa, 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 I love thee. One name and one phrase make my music, Louisa. Louisa, 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 I love thee. Mendoza, thy lover, Mendoza. Mendoza adoringly lives for Louisa. There's nothing but that in the world for Mendoza. Louisa, Louisa, Mendoza adores thee. There is no merit in producing beautiful lines upon such a name. Louisa, it's an exquisite name, is it not? Oh, wert thou, Louisa, the wife of Mendoza. Mendoza's Louisa, Louisa Mendoza. How blessed were the life of Louisa's Mendoza. How painless his longing of love for Louisa. That is real poetry. From the heart of hearts. Don't you think it will move her? Asleep as usual? Doggerel to all the world, heavenly music to me. Idiot that I am to wear my heart on my sleeve. Louisa, I love thee. I love thee, Louisa. Louisa, 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 I love...
Stillness settles on the Sierra, and the darkness deepens. No sky, no peaks, no light, no sound, no time nor space, utter void. And therewith the pallor reveals a man in the void, an incorporeal but visible man, seated, absurdly enough, on nothing. It is all very odd. The man's costume explains itself as that of a Spanish nobleman of the 15th, 16th century. Don Juan, of course. But where? Besides, in the brief lifting of his face, now hidden by his hat brim, there was a curious suggestion of John Tanner. Where on earth, or elsewhere, have we got to from the 20th century in the Sierra? There is an old crone wandering in the void, bent and toothless, draped as well as one can guess in the coarse brown frock of some religious order.
Excuse me, but I'm so lonely, and this place is so awful.
A newcomer?
Yes, I suppose I died this morning. I confessed I had extreme unction. I was in bed with my family about me and my eyes fixed on the cross. Then it grew dark, and when the light came back, it was this light by which I walk, seeing nothing. I have wandered for hours in horrible loneliness.
Ah, you have not yet lost the sense of time. One soon does in eternity.
Where are we?
In hell.
Hell? I in hell? How dare you?
Why not, Senora?
You do not know to whom you are speaking. I am a lady and a faithful daughter of the church.
I do not doubt it.
But how then can I be in hell? Purgatory, perhaps. I have not been perfect. Who has? But hell? Oh, you are lying.
Hell, Senora, I assure you. Hell at its best. That is, at its most solitary. Though perhaps you would prefer company.
But I have sincerely repented. I have confessed.
How much?
More sins than I really committed. I loved confession.
Ah, that is perhaps as bad as confessing too little. At all events, Senora, whether by oversight or intention, you are certainly damned, like myself, and there is nothing for it now but to make the best of it.
Oh, and I might have been so much wickeder. All my good deeds wasted. It is unjust.
No, you were fully and clearly warned. For your bad deeds, vicarious atonement, mercy without justice. For your good deeds, justice without mercy. We have many good people here.
Were you a good man?
I was a murderer.
A murderer? Oh, how dare they send me to herd with murderers? I was not as bad as that. I was a good woman. There's some mistake. Where can I have it set right?
I do not know whether mistakes can be corrected here. Probably they will not admit a mistake even if they've made one.
But whom can I ask?
I should ask the devil, Senora. He understands the ways of this place, which is more than I ever could.
The devil? I speak to the devil?
In hell, Senora, the devil is the leader of the best society.
I tell you, wretch, I know I am not in hell.
How do you know?
Because I feel no pain.
Oh, then there is no mistake. You are intentionally damned.
Why do you say that?
Because hell, Senora, is a place for the wicked. The wicked are quite comfortable in it. It was made for them. You tell me you feel no pain. I conclude you are one of those for whom hell exists.
Do you feel no pain?
I am not one of the wicked, Senora. Therefore, it bores me beyond description, beyond belief.
Not one of the wicked? You said you were a murderer.
Only a duel. I ran my sword through an old man who was trying to run his through me.
If you were a gentleman, that was not a murder.
The old man called it murder because he was, he said, defending his daughter's honour. By this he meant that because I foolishly fell in love with her and told her so, she screamed, and he tried to assassinate me after calling me insulting names.
You were like all men. Libertines and murderers, all.
And yet we meet here, dear lady.
Listen to me. My father was slain by just such a wretch as you, in just such a duel, for just such a cause. I screamed. It was my duty. My father drew on my assailant. His honour demanded it. He fell. That was the reward of honour. I am here in hell, you tell me. That is the reward of duty. Is there justice in heaven?
No, but there is justice in hell. Heaven is far above such idle human personalities. You will be welcome in hell, Senora. Hell is the home of honour, duty, justice, and the rest of the 7 deadly virtues. All the wickedness on earth is done in their name. Where else but in hell should they have their reward? Have I not told you that the truly damned are those who are happy in hell?
And are you happy here?
No, and that is the enigma on which I ponder in darkness. Why am I here? I who repudiated all duty, trampled honour underfoot, and laughed at justice.
Now, what do I care why you are here? Why am I here? I, who sacrificed all my inclinations to womanly virtue and propriety.
Patience, lady, you will be perfectly happy and at home here. As saith the poet, hell is a city, much like Seville.
Happy? Here, where I am nothing? Where I am nobody?
Not at all. You are a lady, and wherever ladies are is hell. Do not be surprised or terrified. You will find everything here that a lady can desire, including devils who will serve you from sheer love of servitude, and magnify your importance for the sake of dignifying their service. The best of servants.
My servants will be devils?
Have you ever had servants who were not devils?
Never. They were devils, perfect devils, all of them, but that is only a manner of speaking. I thought you meant that my servants here would be real devils.
You're no more real devils than you will be a real lady. Nothing is real here. That is the horror of damnation.
Oh, this is all madness. This is worse than fire and the worm.
For you, perhaps, there are consolations. For instance, how old were you when you changed from time to eternity?
Do not ask me how old I was, as if I were a thing of the past. I am 77.
A ripe age, Senora. But in hell, old age is not tolerated. It is too real. Here we worship love and beauty. Our souls being entirely damned, we cultivate our hearts. As a lady of 77, you would not have a single acquaintance in hell.
How can I help my age, man?
You forget that you have left your age behind you in the realm of time. You are no more 77 than you are 7 or 17 or 27.
Nonsense.
Consider, Senora, was not this true even when you lived on earth? When you were 70, were you really older underneath your wrinkles and your grey hairs than when you were 30?
No, younger. At 30 I was a fool. But of what use is it to feel younger and look older?
You see, Senora, the look was only an illusion. Your wrinkles lied, just as the plump, smooth skin of many a stupid girl of 17, with heavy spirits and decrepit ideas, lies about her age. Well, here we have no bodies. We see each other as bodies only because we learned to think about one another under that aspect when we were alive, and we still think in that way, knowing no other. But we can appear to one another at what age we choose. You have but to will any of your old looks back, and back they will come.
It cannot be true.
Try.
17.
Stop. Before you decide, I had better tell you that these things are a matter of fashion. Occasionally we have a rage for 17, but it does not last long. Just at the present, the fashionable age is 40. Or, say, 37, but there are signs of change. If you were at all good-looking at 27, I should suggest your trying that, and setting a new fashion.
I do not believe a word you are saying. However, 27 be it.
The old woman becomes a young one. One might almost mistake her for Anne Whitefield.
Donna Anna de Ulloa.
What? You know me?
And you forget me.
I cannot see your face. Don Juan Tenorio! Monster! You slew my father! Even here you pursue me!
I protest I do not pursue you. Allow me to withdraw.
You shall not leave me alone in this dreadful place.
Provided my staying be not interpreted as pursuit.
You may well wonder how I can endure your presence. My dear, dear father.
Would you like to see him?
My father is here?
No, he is in heaven.
I knew it. My noble father. He is looking down on us now. What must he feel to see his daughter in this place and in conversation with his murderer?
By the way, if we should meet him,
How can we meet him? He's in heaven.
He condescends to look in upon us here from time to time. Heaven bores him. So let me warn you that if you meet him, he will be mortally offended if you speak of me as his murderer. He maintains that he was a much better swordsman than I, and that if his foot had not slipped, he would have killed me. No doubt he is right. I was not a good fencer. I never dispute the point. So we are excellent friends.
It is no dishonour to a soldier to be proud of his skill in arms.
You would rather not meet him, probably.
How dare you say that?
Oh, that is the usual feeling here. You may remember that on earth, though of course we never confessed it, the death of anyone we knew, even those we liked best, was always mingled with a certain satisfaction at being finally done with them.
Monster! Never, never!
I see you recognize the feeling. Yes, a funeral was always a festivity in black, especially the funeral of a relative. At all events, family ties are rarely kept up here. Your father is quite accustomed to this. He will not expect any devotion from you.
Wretch, I wore mourning for him all my life.
Yes, it became you. But a life of mourning is one thing, an eternity of it quite another. Besides, here you are as dead as he. Can anything be more ridiculous than one dead person mourning for another? Do not look shocked, my dear Anna, and do not be alarmed. There is plenty of humbug in hell. Indeed, there is hardly anything else. But the humbug of death and age and change is dropped, because here we are all dead and all eternal. You will pick up our ways soon.
And will all the men call me their dear Anna?
No, that was a slip of the tongue. I beg your pardon.
Juan, did you really love me when you behaved so disgracefully to me?
Oh, I beg you not to begin talking about love. Here they talk of nothing else but love, its beauty, its holiness, its spirituality, its devil knows what. Excuse me, but it does so bore me. They don't know what they're talking about. I do. They think they have achieved the perfection of love because they have no bodies. Sheer imaginative debauchery.
Has even death failed to refine your soul, Juan? Has the terrible judgment of which my father's statue was the minister taught you no reverence?
How is that very flattering statue, by the way? Does it still come to supper with naughty people and cast them into this bottomless pit?
Oh, it has been a great expense to me. The boys in the monastery school would not let it alone. The mischievous ones broke it, and the studious ones wrote their names on it. 3 new noses in 2 years, and fingers without end. I had to leave it to its fate at last, and now I fear it is shockingly mutilated. My poor father...
Shh! Listen. Ha! Mozart's statue music. It is your father. You had better disappear until I prepare him.
From the void comes a living statue of white marble, designed to represent a majestic old man. His voice, save for a much more distinguished intonation, is so like the voice of Roebuck Ramsden that it calls attention to the fact that they are not unlike one another, in spite of their very different fashions of shaving.
Ah, here you are, my friend. Why don't you learn to sing the splendid music Mozart has written for you?
Unluckily, he has written it for a bass voice. Mine is a countertenor. Well, have you repented yet?
I have too much consideration for you to repent, Don Gonzalo. If I did, you would have no excuse for coming from heaven to argue with me.
True. Remain obdurate, my boy. I wish I'd killed you, as I should have done, but for an accident. Then I should have come here, and you would have a statue and a reputation for piety to live up to. Any news?
Yes, your daughter is dead.
My daughter? Oh, the one you were taken with. Let me see. What was her name?
Anna.
To be sure, Anna. A good-looking girl, if I recollect her right. Have you warned, what's his name, her husband?
My friend Octavio? No, I haven't seen him since Anna arrived.
What does this mean? Octavio here? And your friend? And you, father, have forgotten my name. You are indeed turned to stone.
My dear, I'm so much more admired in marble than I ever was in my own person that I have retained the shape the sculptor gave me. He was one of the first men of his day. You must acknowledge that.
Father, vanity? Personal vanity from you?
Ah, you outlived that weakness, my daughter. You must be nearly 80 by this time. I was cut off by an accident in my 64th year, and am considerably your junior in consequence. Besides, my child, in this place, what our libertine friend here would call the farce of parental wisdom is dropped. Regard me, I beg you, as a fellow creature, not as a father.
You speak as this villain speaks.
Juan is a sound thinker, Anna. A bad fencer, but a sound thinker.